That was Carol that turned on the recording.
Good. Do we need to do verified voting tonight?
I don't think so.
Okay, I didn't think so either, but I wanted to double check.
Hi, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
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 Hey,
Yes.
how are you guys?
Hi.
My name is Stephanie Reeves, and I'm here to deal with the variance 023-032. I looked at your agenda and I didn't see it on your agenda. Have
It is,
things-
it is on the agenda. It's at the bottom of page 2.
Okay. That's okay, I believe you. I just didn't see it, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't wasting my time. And then you mentioned something about voting. I've never had to deal with this Zoom situation. So if I need to vote on this variance, how do I do that?
I'll give you instructions when the time comes. Have
Okay.
you ever used Zoom before?
Well, I did for my original baptism on the Monday night meeting with the MLPA.
Okay.
So I'm somewhat familiar. I have figured out the microphone, and but the voting situation is a new ball game.
For voting, we use the raise your hand function. And you,
Oh, is that a button somewhere?
at the bottom,
Oh, man.
Let's do yay. How
Sorry.
about yay? Yay or nay?
No, I mean, so this doesn't work, right? In the camera, raise your hand.
no, because there's too many people in the room, so we can't count them that
Okay.
way. But at the bottom of your screen,
Yeah.
you should see a happy face that says reactions.
Yes, I do see that.
Okay, click on that,
I see at the bottom, raise hand.
raise hand, and that's what we'll use to vote, to raise hand.
It's a good thing I asked. I would never have found that.
Yeah. We do a
so-
little practice earlier in the meeting, so everyone has a chance to find it.
Okay, you've got quite a bit on your agenda. So, and this is at the last part of the evening, I would imagine.
Not quite. It'll probably be about halfway.
Okay. Let's see. Next, had another question. I think that's it.
Okay.
I know how to write. Oh, when you ask people to vote, sometimes people ask people to vote in odd ways. So is it a simple raise your hand if you approve? Or
Yeah,
okay,
I give
It's an
pretty clear
approval.
instructions, I think.
an approval, yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
If you're
Then
in
somebody-
favor of the motion, you raise your hand. If you're,
Okay.
and then we count those, and then we go back and ask if you're opposed to the motion.
Oh, good. So you do ask about opposition.
Yep, of course.
Okay, good. Now I have my process down. I'll go back to my book.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Hi, it's Jody Meriday. I'm Ombudsman of Neighborhoods. And I just
Yes.
wanted to ask if I could present at the end of what you have on your agenda for city departments.
Okay. I'll make a note.
Thank you. There are 2 NPU meetings at the same time this evening, so I just wanted to be sure that I was bouncing between the 2 just to make a couple of announcements from the executive office. I won't be more than 45 seconds.
Okay, Jody.
Merry day.
Tell Eunice Glover hello.
Yes, hi.
She's
I'm sorry
the
you
other,
can't
she's
see
the
me
other meeting.
currently.
Okay.
I know typically it's the police and fire, 311, et cetera. I can go at the end of whatever that is on the agenda.
Sure, that's okay.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
While we're waiting to start, if y'all could mute your.
I'm sorry.
Mute your computers, mute your computers. Oof, this is gonna be a night.
Hello, good evening, guys. How is everybody doing today? Let's see.
We have a few folks that have joined by phone so that we can identify those people. With the person that is calling in from a number that ends in 0040, identify yourself.
Nash, Claudia Nash, Atlanta Fire Rescue.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Let me put your name in here. And the person whose phone ends in 7329, would you identify yourself, please? And there's also a 3402.
3402 is Terrell representing Park Tavern for Rose Fest.
Okay, thanks, Terrell. Oops.
Where's the verse?
7329. And there are two Julia, whoops. Come on. Two Julia Manso Toth. Could one of you change the, and put your own name on it so we know who you are?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. I also see two Stephen Ramsden. When you share the invite, the same name shows up. I also see two Terrence Kings.
Both of those Stephen Ramsons are me. Do I need to only use one? One's inside, one's outside.
No, you can leave them the same, just only vote once.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I don't want to miss a second.
Well, I'm impressed. Oh. We still have a lot of people coming into the room, so I'm just gonna hold up for a while. Did Doug? Yeah, Doug's in the meeting.
Doug is
I'm here.
Okay. And once again, if you please mute your device.
Debbie, when I logged back in, I'm no longer a co-host if you want me to help manage the waiting room.
Oh, yes. Okay, I'm afraid though that we're going to lose your sound.
No, that was purely on my end.
Okay,
Operator error.
okay. I have made you a co-host.
Great.
Good, and I can still hear you. Okay, so if you could catch the people as they're coming into the room, I think we've got things have slowed down. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the March 15th meeting of NPU-F. I'm Debbie Skipczynski and chair for the meeting. We're joined by Kay Stevenson, who is our vice chair, Jane Rawlings, who is our alcohol permits chair. I believe both Rebecca and Jack White, Rebecca Faulkner and Jack White, who are our zoning co-chairs, and you'll be hearing from them later in the meeting. Tonight, taking minutes is Carol Shinara. She is our co-secretary. And we are also joined by Doug Young, who is our planner assigned to NPU-F. There are two agendas. The first is a full agenda, which has a map and a consent agenda. The second is the consent agenda, which includes applications which historically this NPU has approved with little or no discussion. I will put those documents in the chat in just a moment. If you are here for an application, please check the full agenda with the map to find it. Both agendas will be found in the chat. Zoom publishes a participant list, which includes everyone who is attending our meeting. Your name should be at the top of the list. If there is more than one person using the same device, please include both names on the participant list so that we can get an accurate attendance report. To do so, you click on More next to your name, the word More, and you'll find an option to rename. Also, if there is more than one person using your Zoom invite and your name shows up more than once on the participant list, please update the names to make sure that we've got a correct listing. There is a chat room for you to share comments to an individual or everyone in the meeting. For most of you, it will be at the bottom of your screen. You'll also find copies of the agenda, the consent agenda, and the minutes for February. Representatives from the city will leave their contact information in the chat. The chat room will be monitored for comments and questions, but we will only be answering the questions if they are relevant to the topic being discussed. You may save the chat by clicking on the three dots at the bottom of the window. Please keep your comments respectful and avoid language you wouldn't use in front of your grandmother. If I see that comments have become inappropriate, I will turn off the chat for the rest of the meeting. At NPU-F, our meetings follow a town hall format. If you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand function. Or if you're on your phone, you would click *9. You'll be called on to speak in the order that the hands go up. Be sure to stay muted until you are invited to speak, and then identify yourself and turn on your camera so people will know who is speaking. To unmute or mute, you click on *6. For most routine matters, I will either ask for unanimous consent or for a motion and then call on the first two persons who raise their hand to make a motion and a second. Please keep all questions and comments germane to the topic being addressed and respectful of everyone in the meeting. We do have a very long agenda tonight, so to allow all an opportunity to speak, I'm going to ask that you only speak once on a topic unless you are asked for clarification or a question on previous remarks. Please limit your comments to 90 seconds or less unless otherwise instructed. So that we can all hear and we can get a good recording, it's important that only one person speaks at a time. If you interrupt or hog the floor, you will be muted. All residents of NPU-F may vote on any issue unless there is a financial interest in the application or motion. For example, property or business owners may not vote on their own applications, but can vote on others. If you're not an NPU resident, business owners may vote if they have met the requirements as described in our bylaws. We are using the honor system tonight, so please refrain from voting if you do not live in one of the NPU-F neighborhoods. And in case you have forgotten who makes up NPU-F, it's Lindridge Martin Manor, Piedmont Heights, Morningside Lenox Park, Virginia Highland, Edmond Park, and the Druid Hill Streets north of Decatur in the city of Atlanta. NPU-F neighborhoods have done the research, conducted site visits, and negotiated adjustments to the applications we will review tonight. So if it appears that there is not much discussion or many questions, it's because they have done all the heavy lifting on the applications. Finally, we are here tonight because the city provides Atlanta residents through the NPU system the opportunity to provide recommendations and comments on applications that impact our quality of life. It is our responsibility to tell them what we think, and when appropriate, to share the strength of that opinion through hand counts. All votes taken at the NPU are only recommendations. Final decisions are made by city boards, city administrators, or city council. And I hope that you will take advantage of expressing your opinion there as well, either in writing, by phone, or by making a comment during public hearing opportunities. Are there any additions to tonight's agenda? I don't see any hands raised or hear any comments. Then the agenda is adopted. I'm going to move to reports from city departmental representatives so I can take a few moments to upload the consent agenda and the minutes from the last meeting. And Major, I saw Major Webster. Did you want to start, please?
Captain Graham, Zone 6 Assistant Zone Commander. I'm filling in for Major Webster.
Great. Glad to have you here, Captain.
Yes, I pulled your guys' crime for the last 30 days. And you guys doing pretty well, with the exception of we have a lot of theft calls in you guys' areas. We had 7 auto thefts, 42 theft from vehicles, and 2 burglaries. Of course, you guys know the theft from vehicles is what's driving the crimes, not just in the city of Atlanta, but in the nation. But what's alarming about these thefts is we had 10 guns taken from vehicles. If we can get you guys to push out to your residents to not leave bags of any kind, gym bags, computer bags, electronics, cell phones, those sort of items, we can cut these crimes down tremendously. Of the 7 auto thefts, I know you guys probably have heard on the news, we have a lot of Hyundais and Kias are being stolen because they're so easy to steal. They break the steering column and they crank them up with your USB cords. So just push those out to your residents as well to get clubs, if they can, to put them on their steering wheel to try to prevent those thefts. And of the 2 burglaries, we had a lawnmower taken from a shed on St. Louis Place. And then we had a home entered on Pelham, and a safe was taken out of that home. But of the crimes, it was 51 total crimes over the last 30 days of the crime pool. That's all I have to report out. Do I have any direct questions?
Does anyone have any questions for the captain? Stephen Ramsden? Stephen? Can you unmute one of your?
Yes, thank you. Was it Captain Graham?
Yes, sir.
Hey, I wanted to recognize the efforts you and your department made at the Friends Bar and MJQ Corner this weekend. After some coordination with Major Webster, there was some presence there, and it made an enormous difference for those of us who unfortunately live next door to the bar. So I hope that stays the way it is. And thank you for having some more presence there this weekend.
Yes, thank you. And that is going to continue.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I just wanted to verify, you said 10 guns were taken. Is that in the past month?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Captain, I don't think I see any other questions tonight.
Okay, and I left my contact information in the chat. So if they have any other further questions, feel free to email me at any time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here from Zone 2?
Good evening. Ben Vane, Zone 2, Assistant Zone Commander. How's everyone doing tonight? I'll touch on crime a little bit. For NPU-F, year to date, there's been 31 vehicles broken into in 2023. In the month of March, the last 15 days, we've had 7 vehicles broken into. As Captain Graham mentioned, roughly 51% of the crime in Zone 2 is vehicle related, either theft from motor vehicle or an auto theft. And we've had 3 vehicles stolen in the month of March in NPU-F, which is Beat 212, the southern part of Beat 212. And 2 of those, one of those was left running. Just to give an overall perspective, in Zone 2, we've had 370 cars broken into so far this year in 2023. And out of those vehicles, 68 firearms have been stolen just in Zone 2 alone. So, you know, like Captain Graham touched on, clean car campaign, no bags, books, book bags, and a lot of people right now, if they are carrying a firearm, they try and go into an establishment and they believe that their firearm will be secure inside their vehicle, under the seat, in a glove box or a glove compartment. That's just not the case. Whether it's a residentially challenged individual, a career criminal breaking into the vehicle, or these young juveniles, to your neighbors and throughout the community. But we are seeing some good successes. And in Beat 212, we have good beat officers that are engaged with traffic enforcement. So we're high in traffic numbers. We're up roughly 7% so far in Zone 2 in 2023. That's an increase on roughly 20% over 2022. So they're continuing to build on the good work of 2021, 2022, and just raising the level of engagement throughout the officers and the supervisors. A few websites I'd like to share: connectatlanta.org. If you could push that out to anybody and everybody that may have a surveillance system or any camera systems. There's 2 aspects of that. One, you can register your camera and let the city of Atlanta know that you have a surveillance camera there and what type of camera that is. In the event something does happen in your neighborhood or on your street, you can say, hey, an officer or investigator can say, okay, there's a camera over here at 123 Main Street. We can reach out to the owner to see if they may have captured anything. And then the other one is a real-time sharing system through our video integration center, where we can integrate the camera and then we can look at it live if there is an incident that does pop up, or we have a complaint or some issue in the neighborhood. And another website is onesafecity.com. That's the mayor's office. And that's the mayor's website for all the initiatives that himself, his team, city council are putting together throughout all the departments. That includes APD, Atlanta Fire, ADOT, and Watershed, all the programs and initiatives that are going on throughout the city of Atlanta in 2023 and as we look forward. So if there's any questions for Zone 2, I'll take them now.
Does anyone have any questions for Zone 2? Captain Vans. I think this is an easy night for you.
I would agree. So I did leave my information in the chat. It looks like it's only going to the MPU chair right now. I'll also put those websites in there if I can share those with everyone. And anyone that needs to contact me, please give me a call, email, text, whatever's easiest. Major Mitchell and I will get back to you as soon as we can. We're very responsive. So any issues you're seeing on the Zone 2 side of NPU-F.
Okay, I'll pass that information on to, I'll try to anyway, to everyone in the group. Okay, I just sent out the information to the contact information for Captain Vayans. And I've also, while we heard from Captain Graham, uploaded a copy of the agenda, the consent agenda, the minutes for our February meeting, and I've also included the Virginia Highlands Civic Association's recommendations on the Portman Ponce and Ponce project. It is quite lengthy, so if you want to peruse that during the meeting, please go ahead and take a look at it now, because it is long. Okay, is there anyone here from Atlanta Fire and Rescue? I saw a couple names on the list.
Good evening. My name is Captain Matthew Benton. I'm with the Atlanta Fire Department, Battalion 3. I'm the acting officer in charge today.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you. I believe y'all met Captain Matthew Driver, or Chief Matthew Driver, at the last meeting. He's off today on vacation, so I'm riding up for him today. Currently, March begins our hydrant inspection season. So you'll see us out in the streets flowing water. We're not trying to be wasteful. We are trying to ensure that every hydrant in the city is a wet hydrant, that we can get water out of it when we need it. We have different sets of recruits. 85 are in recruit school right now. Some are going to be in the fire side, completing their basic fire training. Some are going to be in the EMS side, completing their advanced EMT training. The city delivered new mattresses to all the fire stations this week. And the old mattresses, you may see them out on some of the curbs. They're being disposed of. We're trying not to have them out there very long. We have a truck picking them up as soon as the new ones come in, so they're not a blight. We do have 2 new fire stations that are expected to come online this year. They're both in the Southwest Atlanta area. That's Station 36 and 38. And we're currently expecting to hire new members to help fill some of those positions. And that's really all I have to report. Does anybody have any questions? Is there anything?
Does anyone have any questions for Captain Benton? No questions?
Well, awesome. My contact, as well as Chief Driver's contacts is in the chat. If anything comes up, please feel free to reach out to him or myself. We'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your mattresses. Anyone else here from Atlanta Fire that wants to speak? Okay. Then code enforcement. Is there anyone here from code enforcement? Cheyenne, do you have a report for Atlanta 311?
Oh, yes. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Cheyenne Forbes. I'm a customer service representative for ATL 311. ATL 311 is the non-emergency call center for City of Atlanta services. 311 is the number you dial to report things like potholes, water main breaks, questions about your water bill, solid waste services, and everything and much more. We are open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We have launched a virtual assistant chatbot on our website at atl311.com. You can search city information, check the status of service requests, and submit the request directly through the bot. Currently, only our top services were added to the chatbot, but we will be adding more services in the near future. You can also access ATL 311's chat box by dialing in to our number 404-546-0311 and following the prompts. At any time, you can email us, download our mobile app, report issues through the website, or even message us on social media. All of our contact information will be placed in the chat. Also, we have partnered with the PAD initiative to provide community response services for quality of life concerns related to unmet mental health needs, substance abuse, or even extreme poverty. When a community member makes a referral, the PAD team will travel to the area and attempt to engage the referred individual and connect them to services. Mayor Dickens has also declared 2023 the Year of the Youth. This citywide initiative will work to equip Atlanta's young people with the resources that they need to thrive. There'll also be a link located for that in the chat. And that's all. Thank you for allowing me to present.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Cheyenne, Atlanta 311? This is a very quiet group tonight.
Have a good evening.
Is there anyone else here from the city that has a report?
Yes, good evening to everyone. My name is Jody Meriday. I am the Ombudsman of Neighborhoods here to serve and liaise neighborhoods in relationship to concerns or trends that you may have. And I'm going to leave my information in the chat. I am connecting to the NPU chairs as well as neighborhood chairs as they reach out to me to identify trends across neighborhoods for opportunities for change and redress in departments. So please feel free to reach out. I am here to serve you and your neighborhoods. And thank you for a moment on the agenda, Madam Chair. I appreciate it and look forward to working with you and the neighborhoods that you represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Okay, have a good evening.
Thank you. Anyone else here from the city that has a report?
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, good evening, I should say. My name is Ebony Jefferson. I am the Solid Waste Education and Enforcement Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Atlanta. I am the manager of the Solid Waste Area Arm Code Enforcement. I'm on here for Mr. Pete Francis, who's off today, but I just want to remind everyone of the yard trimmings. Just make sure that the yard trimmings are put out properly. I also put my contact information in the chat, but it's just going to Zoom room 6. But if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, feel free to email me or you can contact me via my contact information. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ebony. Let me just forward your contact information to everyone.
And Debbie, I just changed that. The chat somehow was set so that people could only chat with the host, but I changed it so they can chat with everyone. So going forward, we should be all set.
Shoot, I thought I changed that earlier. Okie dokie. Thank you. Anyone else from the city? Do we have any elected officials here tonight? Is there anyone here that's representing an elected official that would like to speak? Okay, last
It
chance.
looks like Jonathan Harris is physically raising his hand.
Oh, I don't see his hand. Oh, there we go. Jonathan, go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Jonathan Harris. I'm the new Community Engagement Manager for Commissioner Natalie Hall, Fulton County Commissioner District 4. Thank you for allowing me to attend tonight. I apologize. We just got done with the retreat meeting, so sorry for dialing in late. Couple of announcements. Again, I'm the new Community Engagement Manager for Commissioner Hall. If you're doing cleanups in NPU-X, feel free to F. Is this
F? We're F.
Okay.
F like Frank.
F. My bad, sorry. NPU-F, if you're doing community cleanups, need us to come out and participate, we can provide trash bags, pickup sticks, snacks, and all those good things. We also this year are partnering with a nonprofit organization that will allow us to come in the NPUs and clean up senior yards that are not able to do it at no charge. We have the team to do it. So please feel free, Madam Chair, to contact me on that information. Commissioner Natalie Halls has a couple of events coming up. Of course, we had BLC today. And so they're just wrapping up that. We will be doing our senior Beltline tour. These are for open to seniors to get a tour of the Beltline, eat some lunch. It's a 3-hour bus tour. We will provide transportation to this and also make rest stops. If you would like to sign up, please contact me so that I can get that information over to you. If you know any graduating seniors, males, seniors, we are doing our annual youth conference on March 24th. I will drop the flyer in the chat. There's still time to sign up for that. That will be at the Lottamax Center from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. We will provide transportation to and from the school that the seniors are at, and they will be marked present for the whole day. We will feed them breakfast, lunch, and we'll send them back home so you can feed them dinner. And we will have plenty of workshops. There will be opportunities for them to walk away with some scholarships. There will be a couple of HBCU schools there to kind of guide them through applying for college and stuff like that, if they haven't already done so, but they should have by this time. Other than that, Madam Chair, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to work with you guys. I look forward to being a liaison between Commissioner Hall and NPU-F. And if you need anything, my contact information is in the chat. Feel free to shoot me a text message, email, or call me. I'm always available, and I'll take any questions at this time.
Any questions for Jonathan? Is anybody here? Okay. Well, thank you. I'll look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Last call. Are there any other representatives from the city or anyone representing an elected official tonight that wants to report to the NPU? Okay, I don't see any others. So we're going to go back to very briefly to the minutes for the February meeting. They were posted on the chat. They were also sent to those folks that are on the NPU mailing list. Are there any corrections to the February minutes or any changes? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. I don't hear any voices. The February minutes are adopted. Okay. We're now going to move into the voting matters portion of our meeting. The first item on the agenda is our consent agenda. We have 2 of the 3 BZA applications are on the consent agenda. The first is V2314 1832 Monroe Drive. The applicant has asked to be deferred until next month. And the second application is V2326. This is 2161 Piedmont Road Northeast. That's the location of Towers Beer, Wine, and Spirits on Piedmont Road. The applicant seeking a variance to 1, reduce the side yard building setback requirement from 5 feet to 0 feet on the south side, and 2, the second variance is to reduce the required loading space from 12 feet by 35 feet to 8 feet by 61 feet. The Lindridge Martin Manor neighborhood association conducted a site visit and determined that this was appropriate given the circumstances of the lot. And the LMMNA board voted 9-0 to approve. Their recommendation is approval. We also have a number of special events on the consent agenda. The first is Afro Street Market Fest, a Class C event in Piedmont Park, May 20th, 2023. Indigenous House Atlanta, a Class D event. This is a recurring event in Piedmont Park, May 21st, 2023. The Cafe City Music Rodeo, a Class C event in Piedmont Park on June 10th. And this is a new event for Piedmont Park. The annual Atlanta HBCU Alumni Alliance 5K Run and Walk, a Class D event in Piedmont Park on June 24, 2023. This is a recurring event. The AIDS Walk Atlanta and Music Festival, a Class D event in Piedmont Park on September 23rd. The EVECE Walk for Life, a Class C event with 1,500 participants, a new event in Piedmont Park on August 26, 2023. ATL Greenhouse, a Class C event in Piedmont Park, July 8th through 2023. The recommendation for all of those events are to support. And the last is One Music Fest, a Piedmont Park Conservancy fundraiser. It's a gated event in Piedmont Park in October. And the recommendation there is to defer at the request of the applicant. First, let me check to make sure that all special events representatives are present. That is a requirement of city ordinance. Is someone here from the Afro Street Market Fest?
Yes.
Thank you. The Indigenous House Atlanta, are you present? Indigenous House, John Dennis? Did I see your?
If we weren't called, are we able to?
You're
say-
on the agenda later, but this is just the consent agenda.
Got
John
it.
Dennis? I see his name, I just didn't see him. Okay. Queen Brown DeTiem, Cafe City Music Rodeo, are you here? Okay. Aaron Thompson Rowell?
Yes, I am here.
HBCU, you're here, thank you. The AIDS Walk Atlanta, Claire Doyle?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, thank you. The EVECE Walk for Life, Andrea Edwards, are you present? Is anyone here for that event? Daryl Terry, ATL Greenhouse. Okay, and the last is a One Music Fest, and that's a deferral, so they don't need to be present. Okay. I did not hear that John Dennis from Indigenous House Atlanta was present at the meeting. And so I need.
Yes, I am here. Yes, I'm John Dennis. I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. I almost took you off. Okay.
Yeah.
Queen Brown for Cafe City. Is there anyone here? Last call. Okay, then we're going to remove that from the consent agenda. Andrea Edwards, EVECE Walk for Life. Are you here? We're going to remove that one. ATL Greenhouse, Daryl Terry. That one gets removed. Okay. Is there anyone here who wants to have an application removed from the consent agenda so that it can be discussed in their regular place on the agenda? Is there an applicant here who wants to have an application discussed at the meeting?
Pure Heat Community Festival.
I'm sorry, which one?
Pure Heat Community Festival.
Yeah, you're later in the agenda.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see the agenda in the chat. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Wow, it didn't even print. Okay. And
Debbie, sorry to interrupt. There is a Daryl Terry showing up on the board, but there's no video on and no audio. So,
yep. So we'll go back and we'll do him later. Okay. And is there anyone here who's in opposition to any of these recommendations? The purpose of the consent agenda is to approve applications where the NPU generally approves them with little or no comment. So if you are opposed to any of these, we need to take it off the agenda. Otherwise, we're going to be hearing all of these applications. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Kay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, if you're in favor of approving the consent agenda, please raise your hand. And if you're new to Zoom, you find the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen where it says reactions. If you tap on that, you'll see a raise your hand function.
Debbie, for what it's worth, Daryl Terry raised his hand before we started voting, so I assume he's with us again.
Well, it's too late.
Okay.
We'll catch him later. Okay. I count 24 in favor. And let me clear the feedback. Is there anyone opposed to approving the consent agenda? Is there anyone opposed to approving the consent agenda? Okay. Last call. I don't see any names. The consent agenda is approved by a vote of 24 ayes minus 0 with 0 nays. And that excludes Cafe City Music Rodeo. We'll call those again. The EVECE Walk for Life and the ATL Greenhouse. Doug, if I totally confused you.
Not quite. I was going to ask the same question. So everything but those 3 cases were removed. I mean, stayed on the consent agenda.
That's right.
Okay, I think I'm on the same page.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me just make sure I've got my Daryl Terry. Andrea. And FAC. Okay, the next item on the agenda are matters for voting. And we're going to start with the alcohol license applications. Let me turn the meeting over to Jane.
thank you, Debbie. We have 2 applications for 2 alcohol license applications on tonight's agenda. So the first is GoPuff GB License LLC, doing business as GoPuff. This is located at 2233 Faulkner Road. The agent is Cheyenne Farmer. NPU-F voted to approve the original application at this location at its July 2021 meeting. The current amended application dated 12/20/22 is for a change of agent for an existing retail package store to sell beer and wine. Operating hours are Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. Is the applicant present?
Hi, Jane. It's Mindy Thompson with Start and Laugh, along with Cheyenne Farmer, who is here and can introduce herself as well.
Hi, good evening. I'm Cheyenne Farmer, site lead for GoPuff, Faulkner Road.
Welcome. Did I get everything correct in my report? Is there anything you need to update or?
That's everything, Jane. Just a change of agent to Cheyenne. No
Okay.
other changes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that NPU-F recommend approval for this application. Is there a second?
Second,
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, Debbie, I'll turn it over to you to call for the vote.
Okay, all those in favor of recommending approval of the alcohol license at Go Puff 2233 Faulkner, please raise your hand. Okay, someone has given me, oh, two people have given me a thumbs up. Did you click on the wrong button? Okay, I see 23 eyes. I'm going to lower your hands. Okay, is there anyone opposed to the approval of the Go Puff alcohol license? If you are, please raise your hand. Alrighty, I don't see any hands raised. By a vote of 23 ayes and 0 nays, the application has been approved.
Thank you.
The next application, oh, go ahead, Jane.
Oh, that's okay. Second application is for KRA House. The applicant had requested a deferral at our February meeting until the March meeting, so they are here tonight. I believe I saw them in the attendance record. This application is located at 442 Plasters Avenue. The agent is Candace Burns. The initial application received for this location was for a new business to operate as a convention center. It's a little bit confusing in the code because the code currently doesn't have a definition for event space in the alcohol code. So any event space generally applies as a convention center, and the intent of the intended use on that application was to operate as an event space. PHCA heard this application and recommended denial because the location fails to meet the distance requirement from a church, which is located 400 feet away. The applicant then requested a deferral and has since submitted a new application. The new application is for a use and request to operate as a restaurant to serve and sell liquor, beer, and wine for on-premise consumption. And it is indicated on the application there will be no live entertainment nor customer dancing. Restaurants with no live entertainment and no customer dancing are not subject to the above referenced distance requirement. There's no current alcohol license at this location, so there's no grandfathering. The property is zoned industrial with a seating capacity of 41, does not meet the parking requirement. The applicant is in negotiation with some surrounding locations to lease additional spaces. There are 12 spaces on site, 34 are required. Operating hours are Tuesday through Thursday, 4 p.m. to midnight, Friday, 4 p.m. to 1 a.m., and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I just want to clarify with the applicant, I did not see any Saturday hours listed on the application. So if you could speak to that, and then if you have anything you need to correct in my report or would like to add, please share with the body. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. This is Terry Bailey, attorney for the applicant. I apologize. I don't think it's allowing me to share my video, but and also let Ms. Rollins know that I have another NPU call that I'll be on the agenda shortly, but I think we'll be done with this before that call. So if I hesitate, because I'm looking at the other computer. But as mentioned, most of those facts are correct. I believe the original application was as a restaurant though, but it was going to have live customer dance and live entertainment. I'm joined by the applicant, and I just want to let you guys know it's correct. She's changed her business model, as you could say. She did it originally want to do an event space. However, she was notified of the regulations and the requirements. She's made a shift, but I do want to let you guys know that she has extensive experience in the hospitality industry. She has some experience with one event company called Addie and Al's, which did a lot of pop-up events in the past, but in college, she worked at Red Lobster, as a manager there. She's worked at STK, Taco Mac in Roswell, Salt in Roswell. And most recently, she was did back of the house work for Lily's in Buckhead, and currently does back of the house work for Essence Restaurant Group. When I say back of the house, I'm referring to like operations, recruiting, inventory, reconciling of money, and things of that nature. So she does have experience in the restaurant industry as well. And our plan is to do a traditional restaurant. She's still finalizing the menu, finalizing the chef she's going to hire. As mentioned, we currently have 12 parking spaces. The code does require more parking spaces than that. However, we understand that we will not be licensed or granted a license unless we meet these parking requirements. So we're in the permitting process right now. The city is aware of that. And we are currently in negotiations with 3 properties right now. That's 419 Mason Street, 430 Plaster Ave, and the space directly adjacent on Armor Place. And so we're trying to secure these leases, and we understand that the lease also has to, the hours of operation can't conflict with the applicant. So we are submitting today that we do meet all the legal requirements of this license. The spaces of this application, the space is, although it says 3,400 square feet, the actual restaurant space is probably about 60% of that. So it's a decent sized kitchen, but it's not a very large establishment. We're talking about a little over 2,000 square feet of actual space where the customers will be. So we don't anticipate this being a very large operation. It's confined by the square footage. And we're in the process of securing these additional spaces. So if we do not secure these spaces, the application will never even be forwarded. We won't be able to get a certificate of occupancy. We won't be able to get a business license, an alcohol license. So it will never be forwarded to the mayor for consideration anyway. So we're respectfully requesting your support in this application, and we're here to answer any additional questions you have. Thank you.
So thank you for your report. Saturday hours of operation, what's the plan there? Will there be Saturday hours?
So I believe we put an application, sorry. We changed it. Oh, sorry. So Saturday would be similar to Friday. It should have been 1 a.m. there, but this is not it's not a hard decision. Like I said, as you know, these applications are prospective, but the intent is not, if they don't have business, they're not going to operate that late for sure. They want to leave it flexible. They're not trying to maximize hours. Under code, they could be open till 2:30 and close 30 minutes after. So a lot of businesses that operate in that manner take advantage of all those hours. But no, right now we plan to have the same hours on Friday and Saturday at 1. When we say Tuesday through Thursday till 12 a.m., that doesn't mean that every day is going to be till 12 a.m. That's just a rough projection. If business goes as planned, those would be about the hours that we would expect. But she does not anticipate to stay open that late every night of the week either.
So are you intending to, when you say you're asking for flexibility, is the intent to stay open beyond the stated hours of application?
No. The intent to those hours are less. We just want to be transparent. Okay. I'd rather say those hours and then shut down at 10 or 11 than say, then say 11 or 12 and stay open until 1 or 2. So we just wanted to just be flexible in those hours. So.
Okay, I ask because APD has indicated to me that operating operating beyond the hours on the stated application would be considered a violation and subject to due cause. So I just want to be clear and transparent in stating that. Is there an approximate date when you plan to open?
Well, they told me that they believe the construction could be completed as soon as 1.5 months or so. So it could be completed soon. However, we're still in the permitting process, and we still need to get a food service permit. We need to finalize. We need to get a parking approved too. So when somebody tells me 1 to 1.5 months, in my head, I'm like, okay, 2.5 to 3 months. Just being realistic, how it usually goes. So, so realistically, we're looking at least a couple months out, but we haven't. I don't know, Candace, have you submitted the food service permit already?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yes, I'm in the process of that. You know, the inspector actually just came back with more questions, but we are in the process.
Yeah, so I would say best case scenario, we're probably looking at about 1.5 to 2 months.
So you're anticipating a 2-month open, but there's no hired chef and no planned menu at this point? Is that
Once again,
accurate?
Yes, but we don't even, we still need to secure these parking spaces too. Candace, I guess you can explain a little more on the timing of the hiring of the chef and the menu and everything.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, people want to kind of get something guaranteed, you know, before leaving a position. I've been speaking with a lot of chefs, just chefs that I've worked with in the past and chefs that have applied, but I have not put anything forward or anything like that because we still have a lot of stuff that we're still working on. So I wanted to get a chef in place when I could give them a definitive start date.
Are there any questions from the floor for the applicant?
Candace, can you turn your camera on briefly so that we can see you?
Yes, 1 second, I'm on my phone.
What'd you say, Candace?
Did you hear me?
Nope.
I got an error message. It says that I can't because
Can you repeat that? You push mute, Candace. I think she's getting the same message I got. When I push start video, it says cannot start video because the host has disabled it.
I don't understand that.
Okay, mine's on now.
Okay.
Try it again now, Candace.
Okay, Candace is
Okay,
required to
yes.
be at the meeting, so.
She's on now. She's on now.
there it is. Sorry, I was in the car.
Already, I need to try and find you here. Stephen Sullivan, do you have a question?
Yes, Candace, I was just trying to ask, what is the restaurant concept that you're trying to provide?
So like you said, like a traditional restaurant, I want like a American kind of Mediterranean feel to my menu. And that's kind of like my concept. I mean, does that answer your question? I don't understand.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Tim Berube, do you have any questions for?
No, I think Jane hit on everything pretty well. We're looking forward to, the parking leases and just more information about the restaurant menus, et cetera.
And I think you guys have the menu. I think Terry sent that over to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Jane, do you remember?
I got an email right before the meeting started.
Yeah, it was about 6:40 or so when I answered all those questions for you guys.
Okay. Any other questions?
if there are no other questions for the applicant, I'm going to make a motion to deny this application for providing what appears to be misleading information on the application, that they intend to operate as a restaurant with no live entertainment and no customer dancing when initial applications stated otherwise. And if you read in the application itself, the latest iteration, there's a description under security, and I'm going to read it word for word in terms of the security plan. The security company, Standard Ops and Associates, will hire and send the guard based on the number of people attending any given event. I do not intend on hiring them on my payroll. Standard Ops will invoice me accordingly on a weekly basis and pay the guards on their team, less people for me to manage that way. So the operational description contained within the application seems to indicate that of an event space, whereas the use indicated on the application itself is a restaurant. So that
So
seems
Jane, I'm
misleading
sorry,
to
can I
me.
just correct you really quick? So in all of my information with Jeremy and on my original application, it was always a restaurant. When I spoke to Jeremy and I said, hey, I wanted to do a restaurant, / event space to be able to host birthday parties and things like that, he said, okay, then maybe we look at convention center. And so then we kept going over everything. And then he's like, wait, if you're offering, I think it was 5 meals a week or meals 7 days out of the week, he's like, so this is how I'm classifying you. So I was always classified as a restaurant from the very beginning.
The
So
difference.
I'm not sure where the information.
That's fine.
Yeah, here's the difference. The initial was a restaurant with live entertainment and customer dancing. And so it would be subject to a distance requirement, which the property can't meet because of its proximity to a church. Once that was pointed out, the application was changed to restaurant without live entertainment and customer dancing, which then renders it exempt from the distance requirement. But the operations indicated in the new application state that the security hired will be based on the number of people attending any given event. So it seems
Yes, that was the
inconsistent.
original application.
It's still on there.
It is on the 3/6/23 application. So
Okay.
I just have to base it on the application I have before me. And
Okay.
while you indicated use as a restaurant, the operational description on the application is for an event space. And
Okay.
the location would not qualify to operate at that location because it would not meet the distance requirements.
Okay.
And my second reason for recommending denial is for a failure to meet the parking requirement. So that is my motion. Is there a second?
Is there a second to Jane's motion?
I second it,
I
Ramsden.
second.
Okay, and I'm sorry, who did the seconding? I didn't.
Stephen Ramsden.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does everyone understand the motion? It's backwards from our usual motions. So the motion is to recommend denial of the alcohol license for KRA House at 442 Plasters Avenue. If you are in favor of recommending denial of this application, please raise your hand.
Madam Chair, might we have some discussion of this motion? I believe that is a little.
We're already voting.
Yes, ma'am, but you did not call for discussion.
No, you're right, I didn't, and I apologize for that. Is there a comment that you want to make? I won't close the vote until after you make a comment.
Well, I think the vote should be retracted and retaken, not
Well,
held pending a comment, ma'am. But I'm,
people can lower their hands if you're make a compelling argument. Go ahead.
I'm, well, if we're going to follow a procedure, we should follow it. And if we're not, we don't need to bother at all. The larger point is that I was asking what I'm confused about this, about are we simply saying there's no legal way for this group, for anyone to apply, Jane, for any party whatsoever to apply for this kind of license at this location? Is that the reality as you see it?
They can apply as a restaurant without live entertainment or customer dancing, but they could not legally operate a restaurant that has customer dancing and live entertainment, nor could they legally operate an event space, which has that.
Yes. So I was a little, there were so many conditional statements in there that I wasn't quite sure, Mr. Bailey or others, could you state unequivocally for the record what it is you're, in response to Ms. Rawlings' point? Do you disagree with her point? And if you don't disagree with her point, then you would agree that there's no point in trying to apply under those conditions. Is that correct, sir?
I'm kind of listening to this other MP at the same time, but when you said, well, I don't agree with her point, or point about it being an event center, or her point about it not satisfying the parking, which one?
Well, both of them, in fact.
Well, I think on its face in the application, for her to say that, for us to put in the application, we plan to use the security company for any events. I don't believe there's nothing in the code that prevents a restaurant from having any events. So if there are no events at the premises, then that means you're not using any security on a day-to-day basis. Regarding the parking, once again, usually in my experience in front of the board, the parking calculation is something that's important, but the license review board makes a recommendation to the mayor. Then after the recommendation to the mayor decides to approve or deny the license. If there's not adequate parking, we will not be approved. So while we have not gotten a parking agreement at this time, prior to any license being issued by the city, we would have to satisfy that parking requirement. So I would agree that the parking requirement is not satisfied while it's before the license review board, but I don't agree that we will be licensed without satisfying that requirement. That makes sense.
Jane, can you opine on what the distinction is between an event space that holds an event and a restaurant that holds an event? I'm not quite sure what the definition to me of an event is in here.
I can opine a little bit. I mean, she can
I was
correct me,
asking Ms.
but
Rawlings, but I'd be glad to hear. No, sir, I'd be glad to hear your comments.
Well, there's a lot of there's more into the definition, but the difference between a convention center and a restaurant, and I've had a couple clients change from a restaurant to convention center because it more accurately describes their model. But a convention center, as she mentioned, has to meet all the distance requirements, right? There's no exemptions provided for them. And then second, a restaurant needs to provide food to customers at least 6 days out the week, and it has to have at least 40 parking. So those are the main distinctions. So from the NPU's perspective, the main distinction would be the distance requirements, whether or not you meet them. Now, although the NPU does not believe we meet the distance requirements, the church is the reason. The church that's nearby, I forget the name of it, is the reason. The Mason Baptist Church, I believe. My client originally on the app, we assumed, or the surveyor did not believe that was still a church, since it wasn't I guess the definition, the city code says somebody who meets regularly, as opposed to fight or argue on that. And because my client realized that it may be, in fact, a church, she decided to change her business model, and she has significant experience in the restaurant industry. So it was a shift in the business model. We're not going to deny that, but she does intend to operate within the legal requirements of a restaurant. That's what we're saying as well. So she doesn't intend to have live entertainment. You're allowed to have events at a restaurant, but the restaurant has to be open at least 6 days a week, and it has to serve food every day. If that answers your question.
Yes, Jane, I mean, would you like to comment a little bit? It seems to me that the experience that we've had here observationally is that the food requirement and the percentage of revenue derived from food as opposed to liquor is seldom enforced in the city of Atlanta. Is that still your impression, Jane?
That is still my impression. I think that's a staffing issue.
And so the reason that's relevant is that it seems impossible to measure, and in fact if it is possible to measure, it's simply not measurable in the practical sense of the word. And that includes a restaurant that vexed Virginia Holland for a period of time, even though the one at North Highland and St. Charles, where it seemed to be impossible to come up with food, but the drinks were served late into the night. Not an uninteresting place, but in terms of definition of the restaurant, 50% of the food of the revenue derived from that seemed to confirm everything Ms. Rawlings is asserting here. That's all. I know there's nothing you can do about enforcement in the city of Atlanta. I fully appreciate that. All right, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Does anyone else have any other comments or questions that they'd like to ask before I close the vote?
Chairperson, if no one has any questions, I did want to make one more comment about the enforcement, if I may.
Okay.
If we go forward with a restaurant without customer dancing and live entertainment, and the code's kind of backwards about this, but the city, as of 2 years ago, they just started doing this. The city requires at the renewal for the applicant to produce a certified CPA statement, evidence in the sale, and they have the ability to audit it. So I will say, not only are they requiring that at renewal, the city is more active than they have been in the past. I've had a client that has been that the city has asked for financials and audited them in addition to the renewal. So I will say that although they haven't been on top of it because they've been understaffed in the past, now they require it. And if we're approved due to this exemption, then we'd have to produce those statements and be subject to audit. So if you guys didn't believe you served enough, there's been other neighbors I've complained at other NPUs that have had businesses audited and it's had businesses produce POS system statements and stuff like that to APD. So just for your knowledge and information, that is a possibility, and the city's been doing that more than they have in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
And Jane, this is Candace again. I just have a question for my own knowledge.
Okay.
So at my initial meeting, it was prior to me retaining Terry, and this is my first time going through this process. And so after I have already secured a building, I put a lot of money, time, sweat into this to find out that, certain things on the application would disqualify me. What is wrong with then changing my business model to make it work for the area that I have already secured and put money into?
The issue I have before me is there is conflicting information on the application regarding the business model. You're applying as a restaurant, in my opinion, because that is the only use for which the property would qualify for an alcohol license. However, contained within the application, your operating model describes holding events. And so my concern is that this is ultimately, the plan ultimately is for this to be an event space. And I wish you the best in operating an event space on any property in the city where it can legally operate. Unfortunately, this property would not be one of them. And you're not the first application we've seen like this. But because of that inconsistency and what I have before me on the application, my recommendation is going to be to deny. And it just seems unusual to be 2 months out from operating and opening and not have secured a chef. And, not be certain you have the parking to meet the requirements. And so that was my
Okay.
recommendation.
Okay. Last call for comments.
I hate to belabor this, but isn't it fair, Jane, to say that in fact, we see in our variant,
I lost you, Jack.
we see in our variant, I'll try again, we see in our variance processes, all, and we may hear a piece of this tonight, where folks come forward with flawed and imperfect and contradictory applications without speaking to their motive, because we usually, whatever we suspect, we often don't know their motive. And very often they can be corrected on the fly, or they can be deferred and brought back and corrected. And what we need to deal with legally, and I think what the LRB is going to deal with, is the legality and propriety of what they have in front of them at the time it gets to them. So if it's not ready to vote favorably on, I would rather say that to the applicant, that we cannot under these conditions vote for it. Would you like to defer it and hold it a month and try to perfect these or correct the deficiencies? If they're correctable, that doesn't mean we're going to vote for it in a month. It means we're saying just what we said. We're not eager to vote no. We're not eager to vote no on your motive here. We're eager to say that this is not supportable in its current form, but it could be changed. And that's why I was trying to get at the point. Now, if it's not changed, it's not. But then we have been the reasonable, patient citizens who are trying to work with folks and respecting the effort they're putting into their business. And if they have a fatal flaw, they have a fatal flaw. If they don't, it's correctable, so be it. So can this not be deferred a month if the applicant would like to do that?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to call the question, please.
Okay.
Call the vote.
All right. In order to call the vote, we need to vote on whether or not we're going to call the vote, which means that we're going to close discussion.
Is there a second?
You know, do you need a second?
Comment.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Since that's the case, I'm going to clear the feedback that with the hands raised, the motion on the floor, there's no discussion, is to end discussion of this application and to call for the vote. All those in favor of calling the question, please raise your hand. I see 20 in favor of calling the question.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Okay, I don't know. Either Siri or Alexa is. Okay, I'm going to clear the feedback. I saw 20 votes to call the question. Those that are opposed to calling the question, please raise your hand. If you're opposed to calling the question. I see no hands raised by a vote of 20 in favor, 0 opposed. The question has been called. The motion on the floor is to recommend denial of the application for KRA House at 442 Plasters Avenue. All those in favor of denial of this application, please raise your hand. If you're in favor of the denial, please raise your hand. Give it a few more seconds. The vote is closed. 18 in favor of denial, that's 18 ayes. Let me lower your hands. All those opposed to recommending denial, please raise your hand. If you're opposed to recommending denial, please raise your hand. Give you a few more seconds. The vote is closed. I see 8 people that have voted nay by a vote of 18 ayes and 8 nays. That's 18-8. The motion carries. We will submit the paperwork to recommend denial of this application. Thanks, Jane. You don't have anything else, right?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have one BZA application. It's V2382, 836 Yorkshire Road Northeast. The applicant seeks a variance to 1, reduce the rear yard setback from 15 feet to 4 feet, and 2, increase allowable lot coverage from 50% to 66%. This application is located in the Morningside neighborhood. The process for BZA applications is that we give the applicant 3 or 4 minutes to describe their project and why a variance is required. Then I will ask for a report from the Morningside neighborhood. We'll open that up for discussion. And then we'll have a motion to be made. So is the applicant present?
Yes, I am present.
That's fine. And you can share your screen if you need to, Mark.
That'd be great. So. Okay, so it should be shared now, I believe. So I'm Mark Arnold. I live at 1126 North Highland Avenue, and I'm a applicant for this variance for my clients for Andrew and Melanie Shaw.
Mark, I'm sorry. All I see is your desktop.
Oh, okay. Well,
Or-
I see it. It's up on some anyway.
Yeah, it's behind.
I see it as well, Debbie.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
If you click on the red button on the upper left, that should clear it up.
Okay. So are we
Thank you.
good?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mark Arnold, 1126 North Highland Avenue. My clients are Andrew and Melanie Shaw, who live at 836 Yorkshire Road. They have young kids and would like to enjoy their backyard and make some landscape improvements that include a play structure that sits mostly on the footprint of a shed that they removed recently, and an area of artificial turf because they've had a hard time growing anything back there in the backyard. There's a lot of shade, and they'd like to have a little bit of play area for the kids that would be surrounded on 3 sides, both side yards and the rear yard with mulch, and there's some mature planting there, some evergreen trees, and then they're going to add planting to that. It's relatively flat. It slopes a little to the back, but the mulch and the planting is actually going to create kind of a barrier or a dam of sorts along the perimeter of the turf. The variance is needed because the existing shed sat about 4 feet from the rear fence. So, and that's where the play structure is going to go. So that's the need for the rear yard setback from 15 to 4 feet. And then the turf is, it's new enough where there's there's not settled approach on this. Some jurisdictions count it permeable, some don't, some count half. So we're going to take the most conservative approach, and that this is impermeable, which puts us over lot coverage. But in fact, depending on the installation of the turf, it is a permeable product. And so while we're asking for, actually the initial request was 66%, but has since been reduced to 63%. It actually is not gonna, it's not in fact that much coverage. It's a lot like permeable pavers that are used throughout the city, that provided they're installed correctly on a sand bed and the grouts are kept clean, then they are in fact permeable and recognized as 50% permeability. And the turf is much the same way. So we had the meeting with the MLPA Planning Committee and the board meeting, and we listened to their feedback and made some changes, and the drawing on the screen reflects the most current drawing, where we shrunk the area of the turf and pulled it within away from the tree so that we're not on the structural root plates. We were actually slightly over the structural root plates before. We are under some of the critical root zone, but under the 20% that's allowable. We're 15.7 for the tree on the left and 14% for the tree on the right. We resubmitted with the city this drawing and have a revised referral certificate that shows that we're actually asking for 63% of coverage now, and it's actually just under that, 62.58. We sent letters to the adjacent neighbors, 2 and back, 2 on each side, and a few across the street. And it's 830, 831, 837, 842 Yorkshire, 833 and 839 Cumberland, and we have proof of mailing receipts for that. This is a picture of the play equipment. That's a similar piece. It's not the exact one, but it's very similar to that. And that's the revised referral certificate. And then after further discussion, we realized we really shouldn't just keep talking about how it's going to be installed. We need to show how it's going to be installed. So this is a detail with specifications that I've spent a better part of the day talking to landscape architects and the civil engineer. And this is really where everyone falls, providing the right size stone for the bedding course, so that it's permeable, specifying that there's no sand or gravel or fines allowed on the turf. Otherwise, that would block the holes that are part of the product that create the permeability. And then having a larger stone, it actually should be 57, so not 59. That's a typo on my part, but 4 to 6 inches below that, so that it is the water goes through the turf layer, through the smaller stone, the larger stone. And then key to this is not compacting the grade like you might do for something that's impermeable, but keeping it looser so that then it is in fact permeable. And really, we're almost creating a large, containment area the size of the turf, because this is going to allow the water to percolate slowly through the turf. And the conventional wisdom is it actually solves water problems more so than creates water problems. So I'm going to stop there. I probably used all my time, but I'll stop and save a little bit of time for later.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Rebecca, you want to give us an MLPA report?
Yes, so the board did recommend approval, but I'd like to make a few comments first. I'm not comfortable making that motion move forward without further discussion. There's still a lot of questions about this artificial turf in regards to water runoff, the toxicity of the artificial turf. I also, after seeing some photos, the claims of not being able to grow grass, even though it shows there was grass there recently. And also the effect of the turf on these trees with the critical root zone being covered. So I would like to open this to further discussion, if that's okay at this point, before making a motion.
Okay. I understand. Is there anyone present that would like to make a comment or ask questions of the applicant or MLPA?
Yes, Stephanie Reeves. I just tried to raise my
Stephanie, can you
hand.
hold on until I
Yeah,
call
oh,
you,
sorry.
please?
Sorry.
Okay. I just want to kind of get the, okay. Is there anyone else? Okay.
Well,
Now,
there
Stephanie-
may be. I'd like to hear what's being said here. There may be.
Sure. Yeah, Jack, I get it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yes, I have a lot to say, and I'll try to be brief. The first thing I would like to say is thank you so much for sharing the actual plans. I am so happy to see that you have plenty of opportunity to put your play structure somewhere else in your landscape design other than having to reduce my rear yard setback from 15 feet to 4 feet. It just simply isn't necessary when I now see what your landscape plan is. So I would really ask, please, that everybody having to see this, to recognize that the Shaws have plenty of room outside between that porch and where that 15 feet comes off of our shared property line. You've got tons of space. There's no reason why this has to reduce my rear yard setback from 15 feet to 4 feet 2 inches. It just is simply unnecessary. It might be something that you would like to do, but unfortunately, it's not something I would like for you to do. And I do have a right to, protect my rear yard and the enjoyment of my backyard from unnecessary encroachment when you have plenty of other places to put this play yard structure.
Stephanie, can you tell us where your property is located?
I'm 830 Cumberland Road. So if you look at the plan, my backyard is, it backs up to his backyard. So,
so it's directly adjacent backyard to backyard.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am glad that you have brought up the concern about the trees and 10 inches of grade being removed. So that's a plus. I still think, I'm really concerned because my next door neighbors have at least 2 or 3 trees that are very, very large and very beautiful. And it would be an absolute disaster. And I also have a pine tree. If any of these trees are impacted in a negative way, when you're removing that much turf, that much ground. So that's my feelings, strong feelings about the placement of this play structure. And I would like to say that, I spoke to Christian on September 29th when I called the city because I was concerned about this project. And I'm just going to read this so everybody understands it. Concerning the rear yard setback, no improvement structure taller than 30 inches above the ground may be built within the 15-foot rear yard setback. Your play yard structure is far larger than 15 feet. In fact, it's incredibly high. It accommodates a slide. In addition to that, as you have mentioned repeatedly, you claim that this is the same size as that very small shed that was at the back of the corner of your lot. And that is simply untrue. Now, that's this agenda for the rear yard setback. Please do not grant that because they have ample room to accommodate their structure. They simply need to redesign their landscape plan. That is not my problem.
Oh,
that is
okay.
their problem.
Are there any other points that you want to make?
There are. I would like to address the installation of the turf. I personally disagree with the use of plastic turf as an alternative to grass. Mr. and Mrs. Shaw did have a pretty decent lawn. I mean, I'd be happy with that lawn that was there, that is no longer there. So, you know, he's claiming that he can't grow grass back there, and the fact of the matter is he can. The other thing is, you know, it just occurred to me, you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars redoing this landscape. You know, you can't put down some sod and just water it, and you've got plenty of sun back there. I've seen it. So once again, using this turf is just not necessary. In addition, you are exceeding the 50% permeability, and we have that in question as well, because you have not determined that this is permeable. Now, I don't want to run out of time. I spoke with Lance Orchid with Alex Wan's office this morning, trying to get some confirmation as to what the city's position is concerning permeability. And I was told, and I hope everybody should get their pencil out, that the homeowners need to have their turf approved by where did I write all this down? It's the Department of Water and Waste Management.
It's the Department
You
of
need
Watershed
approval
Management.
from
maybe.
them,
Yeah.
and that's from the city attorney's office. You know,
Well-
that information is coming from the city attorney's office and from Lance Orchid with Alex Wan's office.
Right, and please understand, there's two processes. One is having the variances approved, and then the
Yeah.
next part is the building permits, and that goes through a whole different set of processes and reviews and
Right.
permits.
Okay, well, regardless, well, not regardless, the statement from the city attorney to Lance Orchid is that permeability is determined by the waste management, because this is a storm runoff issue. And so I am providing you this information so that you need to do your homework in order to establish truthfully by the city attorney's office that your product is in fact meets their requirements for permeability. This is not determined by the BZA. It's
That's right.
determined by that department. Okay,
Okay.
now I know I'm running my mouth a lot, but
Yes, you are.
I really
And so
don't.
I would like for you to
Okay.
make sure you get to your major points, but
Okay. I don't want this variance to pass. I
Right.
don't want my rear yard setback reduced. It's not necessary. I don't want this grass, this turf put down for permeability reasons. You know, and third, this turf, I've got an article written in The Guardian about this, the concern that the turf, you know, it has cancer causing particles and stuff in it. This is not good for the environment. And I live down slope from the homeowners, and I don't want this junk, the runoff from plastic turf, when I have an alternative of, you know, God's green earth to be running onto my property. I just don't. I don't need to absorb that risk, and nobody does, to accommodate somebody's landscape design
Right.
project.
okay. Anything else?
I would also like to point out that in 2017 or 18, the Shaws made a decision to, make a vast increase in their house square footage. And when they did that, they sacrificed the amount of yard that was left, claiming that they now need this 15, reduce my setback from 15 to 4 feet. And, once again, why do I have to be penalized? Because
Right.
they made the decision to have more house square footage than yard square footage. This just simply isn't correct.
So
It shouldn't be
that
done.
variance apparently had been approved, so there's nothing we can do about that tonight.
That's not her point, though.
No, I know.
What do you mean it was approved?
Well, the last variances must have been approved so that these are now.
Oh,
the
that
current
business. Yeah,
conditions.
yeah, yeah. I know that was approved. And once again, Mr. Shaw did not send me a letter about that project. I didn't know about any of that variance process. Once again, negligence on his part. Had I known about it, you can be assured I would have been there to oppose it.
Okay.
So I have provided Mr. Arnold, I do have a couple of questions for the architect, but I'm pretty sure now that I have these plans in front of me, that it's very clear that, they have plenty of other space in their yard to accommodate their structure that doesn't have to get into within the 15 feet. And, they can just eliminate this whole problem of, asking for that rear yard setback.
Okay.
The second thing is they need to get their approval from the department. They can call Lance Orchid at Alex Wan's office and find out what they need to do. And the last thing I'm going to say is I've done a lot of work and I've provided you with information. I called the city for you, that got this whole process going. I have done so much in an amazing way, a lot of my time, because I have to help you with your project. Now, I just think it's fair that you guys say, okay, no, there is no 15-foot to 4-foot setback. No way. And lastly, I have an article from The Guardian concerning.
Okay, you mentioned that earlier, Stephanie. Yeah. I would like to give other people an opportunity.
Okay, I'll stop. But okay. As you can see, I think I have researched my opposition very carefully.
Debbie, come
I have
on.
made an enormous effort to be fair, and I would like for this variance to be denied.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your comments. Holly Sassnet. Holly? Did you disappear, Holly? Your hand's been up.
I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong button. That was my bad. Here, I'll put it back up. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I apologize. Thank you. I had concerns on multiple levels here, and I believe what brings this issue firstly to the NPU is the coverage being, it's now 62.6%. And Mark, I know you said that you were going to work on that, and you brought it down a little from 65%, but honestly, since the R4 code is to not to exceed 50%, that you're still quite a lot over coverage for impermeable surfaces. And I've heard you say that this product is permeable, and you offered us a test report, which honestly, those of us at the site visit, the test report just doesn't make sense. And it's also a 48, it was done with a 48 square of product that's flat. This property is sloped. There's a downward slope towards the neighbor. So watershed, it's not going to have the benefit of sitting flat to absorb if it is absorbable. it's gonna gain speed potentially with the slope. But I initially was concerned because of the trees. You know, we've got some significant oaks back there with DBHs of 20, 22, and 30 in the neighbor's property, which that range goes from 100 to 150-year-old trees that we're talking about. And what happens with artificial turf is it raises the, you know, first of all, there's the drawings that you submitted tonight with the substructure. I don't know if you're going to excavate to do that or how that's going to actually come into being, because that potentially is a problem too. But so that's a whole nother issue. But the turf itself will raise the temperature of the soil to the degree that it will kill whatever is below it. So the ecosystem of the soil will be harmed. And these trees, they may not, you know, if they're affected, they may not die this year or next, but, you know, they may start declining. We have to think about, you know, when we're talking about the environment, it's not just how much water something gets, it's also air, it's nutrients that the soil needs. You know, this is a connected ecosystem, and I'm worried about interjecting the artificial turf into it, because this is plastic. And as Stephanie mentioned, I read the same articles. There's a lot of when I started researching it, there's a lot of information out there about artificial turf and the concerns with the PFAS forever chemicals that are part of the backing and also the blades of the actual grass. And as there are some vendors that say that they have safe PFAS chemicals, but what they're finding is when after those have been taken to the labs, that actually they're not safe, and or as they're introduced to the environment, they break down into the non-safe. And everybody should understand that forever chemicals are forever chemicals. And honestly, Mr. Shaw, I would consider whether or not you want your children rolling around on it, because there are cities like Boston that are banning artificial turf from being used because they're finding really hazardous chemicals present in these products. So yeah, I have concerns.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, I'd actually, if it's okay, I'd like to just pass it back to Mark Arnold and to Ernie Murphy, who is the contractor working on this project. And maybe I can speak at the end.
Okay.
I'll unraise my hand, and
okay, Mr.
Mark,
Murphy?
you can.
Ernie, you want to go ahead? You're muted.
Sure. There are several things I want to comment on. First of all, the ability of Andrew to grow grass that's healthy and usable for his children to play on is not possible. He has entirely too much shade. So I'd like to go ahead and say that we've worked with him on replacing the sod multiple times. It does not take, it doesn't have the right environment that it needs. So, you know, if you want the kids to play in a mud pit, great. Otherwise, he doesn't really have another option other than synthetic turf. Regarding the trees and the turf, you know, we're not impacting more than the allowable limit. We have pulled the turf off the structural root plate, so we're at the allowable limit for, you know, disturbing roots. You know, the turf acts, it is permeable despite the different claims. I've installed it all over Atlanta and other states. I can stand with the water hose and show you. I think that's why it's approved in a lot of situations. It has numerous levels of stone underneath that acts as a storage compartment. for water. I would dispute that his lot is heavily sloped. I think it's relatively flat for Atlanta. I don't think you're going to see a lot of runoff, if any at all. It's a good product. I said this in previous meetings. I think if everybody had synthetic turf, you wouldn't see our streams and rivers overflowing. In terms of harmful chemicals, pick your poison. Do you want to spray pesticides and put out fertilizers for turf? Or do you want to have synthetic turf that you don't have to treat? I wrote an article that's listed on our website on the benefits of synthetic turf. I'm a huge proponent of it. It's all over the city. It acts very much like the infiltration pits that the city requires that we install all around town. It's the same process. It's the same as permeable pavers. Quite frankly, to me, it's more permeable than Georgia red clay. So, in my opinion, this it's a non-issue. I'm a huge proponent. I look at it from both sides as a landscape architect. I understand your concerns with detriment to the environment, detriment to trees, detriment to insects, what have you. But on the flip side, it's really great. It holds water. You don't have to use pesticides. You're not using fossil fuels to maintain. It's great. So that's kind of my take on the whole situation.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Matt Reiner?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak up. Ernie and his team installed artificial turf at our lawn here. And we have a very shaded area with trees all around, trees that have been here for decades, if not hundreds of years. And this was installed about 6 years ago. We've had no issues with the health of those trees. The turf has been extremely permeable. We had dealt with worries prior to installing of massive runoff, similar to the worries that are being expressed here in the committee as well. And we have yet to experience any of that. The neighbors that were worried about turf have not brought up any other concerns to us. It's actually helped to alleviate a lot of erosion in some of those areas. And I do think that, the idea about the pesticides or the what it means to kids. We have 2 young kids that are using the turf, and I think that should be up to the parents' decision from that standpoint. And our kids have enjoyed the turf. They are healthy as can be. And the trees around our property are as healthy as they can be. And so I just want to speak up on behalf of actually using the turf post as opposed to predicting what could be. This is what has been with that turf.
And Matt, are you a neighbor of the Shaws or?
I'm in the Morningside area, so I'm just down the street.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jack?
Yeah, well, the contractors, so you're going to be quoted more than you ever knew, I assure you. There's a bunch of things here that hit me about this. We've dealt with many. Number one was Mark's argument that some folks say it's 100% pervious, some say it's 50, some say, etc. That's correct, because there are a lot of different kinds of turf and they perform very differently. And there are some, we've seen this in athletic fields and all that. But there's only one determination that matters here, and it's not Mark's or mine or Ernie's or Matt's or Holly's or anybody's, and it's the city of Atlanta's. And they say it's 100% impervious. That's why this variance is one of the reasons this variance was required and it was put on there. I noticed that Mark in his long talk didn't do something he very typically does. He didn't explain the hardship. He usually leads with it for good reason, because that's what you lead with at the BZA. And I think the neighbor to the rear zoomed right in on it and hit that nail right on the head. There are options. They, as she said, I might agree with the applicant that that's where I would like to have it. We routinely grant such setbacks all the time, but not very often do we have a neighbor walk in and say plainly what appears to me to be the case in this, that there's other places to put it that aren't in the setback. There are perfectly good options available. We know the BZA and the planning department of the city of Atlanta look at that. We know they do. In fact, I think we heard it on a case in Morningside last month, downtown at the BZA. So we know they'll look at that. And the issue here is not the sample of 1 over 6 years with, I'm delighted that Mr. Ryan's kids are doing well and that they're having a good success with it. That's fine. Kids play on it on soccer all the time, and some of them love it, some of them hate it, but that's really not the point. There are circumstances where it's proved to be a boon. And that's not the question here. The question here is not whether artificial turf causes cancer or will damage his children in the long run. We all hope they will not. No one more than he. And someday we'll know that. And I pray that there's no harm. Nor does it matter whether or not the amazing statement that there would be less mud in the stream if we all put in artificial turf. I'm going to the Adopt a Stream conference this weekend in Unicoi, where several hundred people who devote much of their lives to streamside and waterborne habitat spend a lot of time trying to work very hard on the very kinds of insect and habitat creation that this doesn't accommodate. That doesn't mean there's not a place for turf. I'm not ready to say that. I'm just saying that what's in front of this group right here is this application, and I don't think it looks to me like it doesn't qualify. And lastly, I'm gonna make this final, I think is the final point about this, that there's Mark also went through his own evaluation of his own calculations, which have still not been a table or figures or anything shown here tonight about how we got to it and what it reflects. The study that Holly referred, I called the same company. I called them. They're in Pennsylvania. That test was really amazingly simplistic. I asked them all of that. The city of Atlanta's own maps show the terrain originally sloped to the northwest across the woman who spoke's, the rear neighbor's yard, and to the one beside her. And so I'm just, I'm really, I don't see, we have in the past in Virginia Holland and this NPU have repeatedly approved, and I'm still proud to have done it, applications that went over 50%. The main purpose of that was to avoid dumping stormwater. There were 2 purposes: avoid dumping it on your neighbor for them to deal with, and return it to the water table where it benefits all of us in streams in our everyday life, whether or not, regardless of our opinion of artificial turf. The way we've done that is we've allowed applicants to put together a stormwater plan using the city's own standards in their own watershed management and calculating the amount of runoff, and it's highly variable depending on the roof, the slope, the blah, 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 and submitting a statement. And then in Virginia Holland, we paid a separate civil engineer to check it if we didn't believe it. So it's not acceptable to walk in here on this evening and without any of that and pop. I'm glad Mark has a high opinion of his own work. I normally have approved of it myself, but I don't now. And that's not the way to do business. And I think this will be defeated at the BZA, no matter what this vote is in this group tonight. And I'll do my damnedest to see that it happens based on the evidence that's been presented here. I urge y'all to withdraw it and go back and put in another flow well and catch your stormwater and consider your options so that we can try to have peace in the valley here, because we want people to be able to do a lot with their property. But if the neighbor objects on a reasonable grounds, it's a challenge. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jack. Shaq Presswala, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Hey there. I just wanted to chime in. This is a product that we have used in our backyard as well. And I tell you, moving from grass to the turf has actually significantly improved the drainage in our backyard. Moreover, the
believe
amount of
that.
water that we consume to have this product versus when we had grass is considerably less. So while we're talking about environmental impact, I do think dramatically reducing water usage needs to be figured in here, and I do think it's important. So again, I'm not a scientist, but I will tell you, I have not found this product to be anything other than totally permeable. So we've had a great success with it.
Great. And are you a neighbor of the Shaws?
I'm not. I live in Virginia Highland.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Mark, do you want to have the
Thanks.
last word? You're the last hand up.
Okay. Well, Jack's right. I didn't state the hardship, and that's an oversight on my part. But part of the variance process is to define the hardship and why a variance should be required. As many of you know, we're operating under a code that was adopted in the 80s that doesn't reflect a lot of the built environment in the in-town neighborhoods. And this is an R4 property, which according to the zoning ordinance is supposed to have 9,000 square feet of minimum lot area and 70 feet of frontage. And it's deficient on both counts. It's 7,609 square feet of area, and it's 54.35 feet of frontage. It is a deficient lot. That's the hardship. The city planning staff will most likely make that same assessment, and most of, if not all of the variance I've done, that pretty much is what they lean on for granting variances. I don't see why this project should be any different. Stephanie, I appreciate your input and your comments, but the Shaws are not in any way encroaching on your rear yard setback. You have 15 feet of rear yard setback on your property, and you have 7 feet of side yard setback. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the Shaws property and the Shaws property only, and they want to encroach in their setback. We at the MLPA board meeting, one of the members, Joe Dawsey, spoke knowledgeably and about the report that was submitted as part of the drawings. And actually, I think he saw a lot of merit in the report. It's put out, it's part of the Shaw's literature, so they're not going to put out a report that speaks ill of their project. But I think Jack also mentioned this, that we could probably go out and find as many sources against the project as there are for the project. It is relatively new, so it's still being vetted, but I think there are correct applications for this product, and I think this is one of them. And then also, as Debbie, as you spoke and mentioned, that this is just part of a process. This is the variance process. The next step in this will be the building permit submittal, where we'll have to have more thorough and more complete site development drawings. And we may, in fact, need to have an additional retention pit. There is an existing retention pit on the property in the area of this turf where the downspouts from the 2017 renovation are routed to. They hold the water and let it percolate out slowly. There is a little bit of capacity in that pit that could be utilized for this turf. But we, until we get in there and see if what was specified is what was installed, we can't really lean on that. So part of the building permit drawings and application will be a more thorough set of drawings that will address that and will get us, to the number that we need to be at. But it doesn't make sense to put in that much labor and effort and time on the front end until we know that the variance is in place. And then once the variance is in place, we'll work towards meeting that goal. So to come to this meeting with all of that already done is, in my opinion, putting the cart before the horse. This is the first step in the process.
Okay, anything else?
There probably will be in a minute, but for now, that's all I have.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. So, let me ask-
Excuse me.
Stephanie, you've already spoken.
Okay, I didn't realize I couldn't speak. I'm sorry.
Yep, I announced at the beginning of the meeting only
I apologize.
one time. Alrighty. Natalie Ramsden.
I just wanted to ask one question on a comment made about setbacks. I thought that we all had setbacks. We have a setback on our property, but our neighbors also have to maintain a setback. So we have distance, light, etc. So I just want, for future purposes, I want to understand, aren't we all supposed to have these required setbacks? Even if I have a setback, if my neighbor encroaches right up on it, that compromises light, etc. Am I understanding that correctly? Just so we understand this on future discussions as well.
This R4 zoning, which most of Virginia Highland and a good bit of Morningside is zoned, requires a 7-foot setback on the side yards and 15 feet in the backyard, 35 feet in the front yard. That zoning ordinance was written back in the 80s, and many of our houses were built before then. And so with much smaller setbacks. So we've got grandfathering all over the place.
Okay.
For it. The city allows for variances to the setback when there's a hardship and when it is not to the detriment to the community. I can't repeat all. There are 4 conditions for allowing for a variance, but that is the work of the Board of Zoning Adjustment, is to approve variances to the zoning ordinances. And
But
that's the
only
reason
if
why
there's a
we're
hardship.
here, is to inform the BZA what the neighborhood believes is right or not right for a particular property.
Okay.
So that's kind of the way that it works. Hannah, I see your hand raised.
Yes, hi, thank you. I live at 830 Yorkshire Road, so we're the direct neighbors of the Shaws. And I know this has been a very long conversation, so I'll just keep it very short to say that the Shaws have been very forthcoming about this project with us. We support the project. We do not share concerns that some of the other neighbors have, expressed today. So I just wanted to speak in support of the variance.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Is there a motion? We've heard from a number of neighbors.
I'll make a motion to deny this application.
Second.
Okay, the motion was made by Rebecca and seconded by Jack to deny. V 2332 at 836 Yorkshire Road in Morningside. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any more to be said? Anything different that hasn't been said previously?
Well, Debbie, can I ask a question concerning the motion?
Yep, you can ask.
Is it, and I don't know Robert's rules of order enough to know if I can ask this or not, but is it possible that we consider one aspect of the application and not the other? In other words, is it possible to consider the setback request without considering the coverage request, and that would give us time to work on the coverage issue?
Yeah, I think we can split it. Rebecca, would you be willing to split your motion into 2 so that we vote on the setback reduction and then the lot coverage reduction?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we could do, so I could make a motion on, are you going to defer the lot coverage part of this, Mark?
I think that's in our best interest, yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to
So let's withdraw your motion.
okay, yes, withdraw my motion. So
Okay. Okay, and your new motion is,
Madam Chair, may I say, if Mr. Arnold wishes to withdraw it, he should do that and change what's before the body. If he doesn't have to, but whatever he wants to do.
I don't understand what you're asking.
I was under the impression that you had to be recognized before you could speak to the body. Is that not the
Yeah.
case?
Apparently
thank you.
not, Stephen. You spoke just as I did, so I guess not.
Yeah, well,
My
you know,
question.
okay,
my
but
question,
Debbie rules are to please raise your hand and you'll be called on. So, okay, can we do it this way? This may not be the most appropriate way. Rebecca has a new motion to, oh, I never heard the end of the motion. What would your motion be for the first part?
well, I have a question for this. Would we not need an amended application to move forward to the BZA with this?
Nope,
Oh, okay,
this happens on occasion.
okay. I'll make a motion to approve the setback part of the application.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. I have to. All right, Rebecca, and that was Kay that seconded
Yes.
part A. All righty. So the motion is to recommend approval of number 1 of variance request, reduce the rear yard setback from 15 feet to 4 feet. Does everyone understand what we're doing right now? The motion is to recommend approval of the first half of this variance. All right, any question? Jade, do you have a question regarding the motion? No, your hand went up. All right, all those in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. If you're in favor, please raise your hand. I'll give you a few more seconds. Someone's clapping their hands. Did you mean to? Okay, thank you. All righty, I'm going to close the vote with 19 in favor of that motion. Let me clear the feedback. All those opposed to the motion to approve the variance to reduce the setback from 15 to 4 feet. A few more seconds. Okay, I see 15 opposed by a vote of 19 ayes and 15 nays. That motion carries. Now, we're halfway there. Mark, are you going to withdraw the second half of the motion? Are you gonna
So what
withdraw
are my options? If we want another month, do I defer that or do I withdraw it? If we want time to develop further details on the coverage request.
That would be a question for the city on.
Can I ask a question?
Who is asking a question?
I'm sorry, this is Andrew Shaw. I'm sorry I didn't raise my hand. The resident applicant.
Okay, that's 2 demerits, Andrew, but go ahead.
Sorry. Is the committee or the folks that spoke, are they looking for more detail on sort of the drainage capacity of this? Sorry to reopen the conversation. Maybe this is not, again, in keeping, but what is it that those folks are looking for in order to consider this application as it relates to the turf?
Jack, do you want to
Yeah,
I
maybe
had my
Jack.
hand up first.
Okay, I'm sorry, Rich. I
Okay,
saw your
first
hand.
of all, Debbie, could you please remind the applicant that he may not vote?
Yes.
He voted last time. He voted
Understood.
for the motion. So take that one off, please.
Okay. Thank you for catching that.
Secondly, I think the major point, Jack made it, the city at the present time does not regard this product as a permeable product to count towards permeable, excuse me. So I think that really has to be resolved. I think the major question I think Jack brought out is that they're trying to increase the impermeable, to 65%. If indeed the city says that it's okay, then I think there's a case. If the city is adamant that it is not counted, then I think we have a problem.
Okay, thanks. Jack, do you have
Yeah,
a short comment?
That certainly was a huge flaw in my book. The properly done, we would do the calculations we described and then try to examine let the city examine the test results that those folks supplied, which let them be, who cares what anybody's opinion but theirs is. Let them do it and see what, if they're willing to give any flexibility for it. And if you're not increasing it, once you're over 50, you typically are not allowed to increase it without compensating for everything you've done over 50. And so, but you could do that. That's actually doable. And Mark and I talked about that this afternoon. So I'm very disappointed that
That's
instead
okay, Jack.
of doing it, that's it. So that would resolve it. So I would love to see that withdrawn or deferred and the proper calculations made and submitted in a way that can be reviewed by the other people, not just them, yourself.
Okay. Let me try and summarize what the NPU process is. This is mostly for Mark and Andrew. The NPU has to report recommendations back to city planning regarding this application. We can report an approval for the part one, and I think that we need to make some kind of recommendation for part two, either to deny the application, approve the application, or defer the application. We need to do one of those three things. And given that you're already scheduled for a BZA hearing, unless you want to defer your whole application, then I think that our options are to approve or deny. Recommend approval or denial. Given the processes that follow once we end this meeting. So with that information, what does the body want to do? Approve, deny, or defer?
I wish I had a quiet, private moment to consult with my client. Could everyone look away and cover your ears?
No.
I don't know.
So I'm sorry, I'm sorry if this is a silly question, but we just voted to approve the
That's right.
setback
And you
variance.
could go forward on that, but I think the BZA is not going to approve half of it and not approve the other and defer the other half. I just don't think that's their process. Okay.
Well, that was just the question I was going to ask, because I actually, maybe I misunderstood. I thought that was the suggestion and the reason that Rebecca was splitting her motion. So,
well, when Rebecca split the motion, though, we didn't know what was going to happen to that second half.
okay, so, and Doug, do you agree that we can't move to defer half of the application?
Thanks, Kay. Good evening, everybody. Once again, my name is Doug Young. I'm the staff planner assigned to NPU-F. And I work in the Department of City Planning. So my experience with the city's boards, BZA included, is that there's not a way to approve part of a variance and hold the other part of the variance. What I certainly can't speak for the BZA, but I likely see what's happening is they'll defer the whole package. Unless they're inclined to, deny it at the BZA itself. But, one question I asked the applicant potentially is what was their intention at the BZA hearing? Because if they go forward with advocating for an approval, that's going to be for the, likely the whole application. The BZA does have the option, as do other city boards, to approve something with conditions that would remove part of the request, which would that mean the applicant would have to start again on that request from scratch? Because that would be an action taken by the BZA and it would be a denial at that point of that's part of the application. So they can parse an application by conditionally removing part of it, but that means that's done, that part that's removed.
So it's all or nothing, essentially.
Here, but not at the BZA. Is that what you're saying, Doug? You're muted.
The NPU can provide however, it can couch its comments however it would like to do that. What I'm saying is that the BZA, when it has an application on its docket, it either has to defer it or approve or deny it. And if it wants to approve only part of an application, for example, it has to condition out the other part of the application. Say you're approved for your fence, but not for your driveway. That means you have to start from scratch on the driveway if you still want to do it later on, as an example.
And isn't there a waiting period when something's denied?
That I can't speak to, Debbie, specifically. I know, I believe that's the case, but I'm not as familiar with that part of the.
I can't remember if it's 12 or 24 months, but there is a waiting period.
For the same request.
For the same request, right?
Yeah, so you could arguably make a request for a slightly different amount of lot coverage increase, for example. That'd be something for the BZA secretary to answer.
Right. Rebecca?
Yes, so is it possible just to go back to the initial motion to deny this application as a whole?
Please. Well, we've already voted on half of it, so no. Without rescinding or reconsidering the vote.
I think we have to reconsider.
We'd have to reconsider it.
I think we have to do that though, right? Because we all voted assuming we were going to vote on the second piece and now we've found we can't.
Well, we can vote on it.
Let me be
Can we just
clear,
defer then?
okay, the MPU rules are not the same as the BZA's procedure. So the MPU could do whatever it wanted.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we want to do something practical, right?
Okay, all right.
And we can make two different recommendations. That is possible. And that is reportable, which is the most important part with doing this stuff. We can report that we support part 1, but not support part 2. So Rebecca, would your recommendation be to deny the lot coverage?
My recommendation at this point I think would be to reconsider the vote for this application.
Okay. And is that a motion?
Yes.
Defer.
Was that a second?
I'll second, Holly.
Madam Chair, the motion and the second have to be made by people that both voted in favor of the original motion.
You're absolutely right, Jack.
Is that so?
Rebecca, did you vote in favor? You voted in favor of the motion.
I did as well, and I'll second it if that needs to happen.
Okay. I will never be able to follow my notes. Okay, Rebecca. The motion is to reconsider the motion to approve part 1 of V 2332? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay,
Is this, are we voting again on the same issue, or are we,
we're voting to reconsider our previous vote.
so a vote for is the
We
same
voted
vote as,
for, and now we're reconsidering that vote.
okay, so if I want to vote for, if I was for it last time, I'm voting for it again, is that?
I
No,
would think so. I would think so.
Because I don't even understand. We're voting to reconsider?
right.
May I, Madam Chair?
We're voting to wipe the books that no decision has been made, and we're going to start over with a new motion.
Okay, so we're voting on whether to reconsider.
That's right. That's what we're doing right now.
Got it.
And I'm checking Robert's rules to see if we need all we need is a majority. Okay. All right. I'm going to close the vote. I see 19 ayes to reconsider. Let me lower the feedback. Those that are opposed to reconsidering the previous motion, please vote. I'm going to give it a few more seconds. If you haven't voted, please vote. All right, I see 13 nays. Robert says that all you need is a majority. So the motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Jack.
may I ask once more, implore the applicant to consider deferring this entire motion 1 month, not, and trying to meet once again to resolve the several contentious issues here in a way that would offer a chance to satisfy the entire group. We'll be glad to work with him, try to, and others who can support her, and it may not be possible, but I think that was the way, that's the path toward peace in the valley. And that kind of work is very hard to do in a group with 80 people in it or 30, but it's much easier with a half a dozen or so that are deeply concerned. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, defer, please. Speak until called on, but my hand's up, but yes, we'll defer.
Thank you. I second the motion.
Who made the motion?
Mark did.
Amen.
Actually, Mark can't make the motion
make a
because he
motion.
has a financial interest in the application. So is someone else making the motion to defer?
I make a motion to defer.
Thank you, Rich.
Second,
All righty. Mark, do you think you'll be
Read the
ready
entire
for the
motion.
April meeting?
Let's
Yes.
move on.
Hold on. Yeah, I think we can be ready for the April meeting.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor to defer this application to April. And Christopher, do you have a question regarding the motion?
I have a quick question. Yes, sorry. Are Mark and the contractor allowed to vote in this?
No, they are not.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just clarify? My hand has been up a couple times for a question, and I think it was up once when the voting was taking place, but I didn't mean to vote. It was up from a question where I wasn't called on. So
Okay, thank you. At this point, it doesn't really matter. And I didn't really say that. All right, the motion is to defer the application to April. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Oops, okay. Motion to defer, all right. Oh. Okay. Can everyone get their hand raised? I'm going to close the vote. I find 31 ayes. Those opposed to deferring to April, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand. Okay, and I see 4 nays by a vote of 31 ayes, 4 nays. This application V2332 has been deferred to the month of April. We'll
At the
see you all
request,
next month.
at the request of the applicant, the notes should say.
There's no room on my sheet. Okay. We have a few special events that I'd like to quickly go through. Is Paul Smith here for Celebrate en Rose?
I'm here.
Great, thank you. This is a gated event for 5,000 participants at Park Tavern in Piedmont Park from May 7th to 2023. Paul, do you want to give us a very brief emphasis on brief description of your event?
And it's Terrell representing Paul Smith. Hello, everyone. This is pretty much an addition to our normal footprint that we do for all our festivals. The majority of everything will take place inside of Park Tavern and on the park, if you know, Piedmont Park, on the Park Tavern side of the cart path, there will be a fence that goes into the meadow. The meadow area will only be for people to sit on blankets and watch the performances that will be on a mobile stage. Again, on the Park Tavern side of the cart path where we normally set up for our events. And it's going to be everything all rosé. It's on a Sunday, but the music will stop early. You know, as we know, people have to go to school and work on Sundays. And again, it's going to follow the same pattern for all of our festivals that we've had for the last 20 years that happen in Piedmont Park.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicants regarding Celebrate en Rosé? Is there a motion?
Move to support.
Is there a second?
Ramsden, second.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, any questions on the motion? The motion is to recommend support of this event in Park Tavern, May 7th, 2023. Are there any objections to the NPU supporting this application? Any objections, please speak up. Then the motion carries without objections. The next application is the Atlanta Jazz Festival in Piedmont Park, May 27 to 29, 2023. This is a Class A event, 100,000 participants. Is the applicant present or her representative? Is Sarah present? Okay, is there a motion to defer?
Move to defer.
Sorry, were you looking for Sarah Brumfield?
Yes, Sarah.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Putting some kids to bed.
Sorry, I know we're running late. Sarah, can you describe the Atlanta Jazz Festival, particularly anything that might have changed from previous years?
Yeah. So the Jazz Festival is going to be held on Memorial Day weekend, Saturday, May 27th through Monday, May 29th. Sound checks will take place between 10 and 12 p.m. And then music is from 1 to 11 p.m. We have one stage this year again, just in the meadow near Park Tavern. Food, beverage, artists, vendors will be set up along Charles Allen and Oak Hill and up to Park Drive. But we will make sure that Park Drive is open for anybody trying to get to the tennis court still. Setup's going to start around May 22nd. Breakdown is done on June the 1st. All the load in will take place around Charles Allen Gate. And the stage will take load in right off 10th Street. We're going to have about 15 fixed traffic officers this year and 4 mobile officers that are just helping with traffic. And crowd control will have about 7 different positions, including with APD, and then we'll also have additional security through a t-shirt security company.
Do you put up no parking signs?
We will. Those will start going out the week of, and they're pretty much going to be going to all neighborhoods around the park, north, south, east, and west of it.
Would you also include signs on the streets east of Monroe Drive?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Any questions? Is there a motion?
Move to support.
Thank you, Kay. Is there a second?
Ramsden, second.
Thank you, Steve. Stephen. Okay, are there any objections to the NPU-F recommending approval of the Atlanta Jazz Festival? Then the motion approves without objections. Next application came off the consent agenda, the Cafe City Music Rodeo, Queen Brown de Thiem. Is she present? Is anyone here for Cafe City Music Rodeo? Is there a motion to defer?
Move to defer.
Ramsden, second.
Okay. Is there any objection to deferring this application? Seeing none, the motion is approved without objection. Next one is the Atlanta Journal-Constitution Peachtree Road Race. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Julia.
Yep, Julia Manso-Toth from Atlanta Track Club.
Okay, we all are aware of the road race. Tell us if there's anything different.
No major changes this year. 50,000 plus people. The big difference will be, since the 4th of July is on a Tuesday, we typically do a Peachtree Junior, much smaller event with about 1,100 people. The day before, we'll actually be doing that on Sunday, July 2nd instead. So that'll be the big change. Hopefully we'll have less of an impact on any commuter traffic, and hopefully more parents and children can attend. So that's the big change, but everything else is rinse and repeat.
Will you be closing Virginia Avenue on the 2nd?
No.
Oh, okay. Any questions for Julia on the Peachtree Road Race? Is there a motion?
Move to support.
Second.
Thank you, Rich. Are there any objections to NPU-F recommending a support of the Peachtree Road Race? Any objections? Motion approved without objection. ATL Greenhouse, Daryl Terry.
Yes, I'm here.
Yay, Daryl.
I had problems with my computer, so I had to get on my phone, which was charging at the time.
Okay. This is a classy event, 500 participants in Piedmont Park. This is a recurring event.
Yes.
How many people were at the event last year?
Well, last year we had about 300-400. I was trying to do the pavilion, and the weather called for rain. So I used my rain date, and with my rain date, Piedmont Park Conservatory had an event going on in that area, and the pavilion was not available. So they put me in the middle. And that kind of deterred a lot of people because it was hot. There was no shade. So this year we're back in the pavilion.
Okay, and you average about 500 people each year?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? This is a classy event. Is there a motion?
Move to support.
Ramsden, second.
Okay, I think Rich actually beat him. Okay. Does anyone have any objections to the NPU recommending support of this application? I see no objections. The motion is approved without objection. The next item is the EVECE Walk for Life. Adrea Edwards, that's also a classy event, 1,500 participants. Is Ms. Edwards present? I don't see her. Is there a motion to defer?
Move to defer.
Second, Ramsden.
All right, you got in this time. All right. Any objection? The motion is to defer the Walk for Life. Any objections to the motion? The motion carries without objection. Next item is Pure Heat Community Festival. Melissa Scott, thank you for hanging with us, Melissa.
Hello.
This is also an event that is held many years in a row. It's a Class C event, 19,000 participants in Piedmont Park, September 3rd, 2023. Do you want to tell us what's new with Pure Heat?
Sure. This is our 13th year in action, actually 12th year activating, less the COVID year, of course. I feel like we've all aged gracefully together. Same event takes place, Charles Allen, 10th Street. Main stage is actually going to remain where it's been for the last 12 festivals on Charles Allen. The only thing new from our perspective, which we actually executed last year, but it rained so much that I feel like nobody really got an opportunity to experience it. But we're going to activate the pavilion across from the pool. We've always had it, and we've always had music, whether it be house music or old school. But this year we're actually going to activate it for the LGBTQ homeless youth, and we're partnering with the Hawks, and we're going to give them an experience so they can still experience Atlanta Black Pride Weekend, but not be in the mix with all the adults on the other side. So we're going to give them some things to do and some activities. They're going to have their own little 8x8 platform, little riser, where they can have like a little talent show and things of that nature. So we would consider that new. We'll have the same 44 officers, 25 security. Our vendors will run along Charles Allen from 10th up into, they would end once you make the left to cross over to the pool. Porta potties would hang out there on the T as you enter in Charles Allen. On the left, Oak Hill is simply used for pedestrian traffic. Some of the vendor park vehicles, and that's it. Everything else will be the typical Pure Heat Community Festival for Atlanta Black Pride Weekend.
Okay, and do you put no parking signs up in the neighborhoods?
We do. Well, we activate a little further. We typically have, once the hours change, we typically have officers that actually hang out on the entrances to the different streets. And so if you don't have an ID that matches the neighborhood or have a viable excuse, they typically don't allow entry on those streets. Now, if you want us to add no parking signs, we can do that as well.
Well, that's up to you, but can you also make sure that the streets east of Monroe are also cared for? We've had a lot of parking issues in their narrow streets, and you can't, when people park on both sides, you can't get through.
Very difficult to get through. And you definitely can't get two vehicles. Definitely can't get two vehicles coming through. So yes, we'll take care.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? Is there a motion?
Move to support.
Second, Ramsey.
Okay, are there any objections to the NPU recommending support of the Pure Heat Community Festival September 3rd, 2023? I don't hear any. The motion carries without objection. Are there any other events that I may have missed?
Yes, we have the Wild Afro Street Festival, Afro Street Market Festival on May 20th, Saturday, 2023.
Weren't you on the consent agenda?
Yes, we were on the agenda, but we did not hear our name mentioned.
Oh, well, we've already approved your application.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Great. I'm sorry.
Indigenous House,
Indigenous House.
John Dennis.
Also on the consent agenda.
Yes. You have also been approved, Mr. Dennis.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else that? We've had a ton, all right. We have two more voting items. All right. The next item is Z2293 and Z2294. Z2293 is 712 Ponce de Leon Avenue Northeast. This is the west parcel for Portman's project, commonly called Ponce at Ponce or Ponce on and Ponce. The applicant seeks to rezone 1.178 acres property from I-1 in the light industrial beltline overlay, zoning designation to PDMU beltline, which is mixed use plan development beltline overlay to allow for a non-residential building with a mix of office and commercial uses, including retail and restaurants. And Z2294 is 718 Ponce de Leon Avenue. This is the east parcel for the Portman project. Applicant seeks to rezone 2.696 acres development in the beltline overlay. Zoning designation to allow for property from C1 beltline, community business beltline overlay, zoning designation to PDMU for mixed use plan, multifamily residential office and commercial uses. Which does the applicant want to give us a presentation on your project so folks that have not heard it before know what they're voting on?
Sure. Mike, do you want to share your screen or do you want me to share mine?
Well, you know me, Jessica, I have lots of different presentations that I could put up for everybody. I'm willing to bet you have the conditions and the specific zoning request. So
Yeah. Well,
I had the renderings and the examples and stuff, so we could go in any direction.
yeah, why don't I start? I know at the beginning of the meeting, Debbie very kindly put the planning committee recommendation in the chat. And that has all of the conditions listed in it. So for those that haven't had a chance to take a look at those. Oh, and I'm Jessica Hill, by the way. I represent Portman Holdings. and joined here with Mike Green, who is with Portman Holdings. We have been working very hard with the Virginia Highlands Neighborhood and Planning Committee to craft a development and a set of conditions that apply to both properties and some properties individually, which again are posted in the chat. So feel free to take a look at those while we're talking about this. But I know it's getting late for everyone. But just to share screen, you've got two properties, one which we call the West Track, which is where Paris on Ponce is, Beltline Trail over to the west, Ponce here, Ponce Place in the middle. The second property, which is the second application Z2294, we call it the East Track. It is an assemblage of properties with Maiden Lane at the rear, Ponce, and again, Ponce Place. Rezoning both of the properties to PDMU, which is a site plan specific zoning with a set of conditions. Overall, the development includes multifamily, office, and commercial uses on both of the tracks. I'm going to show this is an aerial bird's eye view of the project looking west. You can see the Beltline over here to the left. You can see the form of an office building here with sidewalk level commercial. You can see a second office building here, and then you can see this P shape is a multifamily residential building. One thing to note, this is not necessarily what the skin is going to look like on these buildings. This is a modeling of what it would look like and something that we created for purposes of talking points. Here is a view of the larger tract of the East Tract taken from Ponce to Leon Place. You can see that it has two curb cuts on Ponce. This is one of them for loading. Another view. I'm going to run through these. I'm happy to go back through them, but we have plenty of views of the project. One thing that you can see here, this is the West Tract abutting the Beltline. You can see on Ponce to Leon Place, there is a pedestrian connection from Ponce Place directly to the Beltline, which is elevated, and that's memorialized within the conditions. Just more views. More views. This is a view from the Beltline looking east. So again, you can see that connection to the Beltline. Plaza. This is a view from Maiden Lane. We had a lot of discussions about how the project would approach Maiden Lane, which, currently most of the development on the north or the north side of Maiden Lane, it really kind of backs up to it. It's not a very attractive street to drive down, and this project would activate that street. It would have stoops. The street would be widened. Here is a 2D site plan showing both of the properties. This project also triggered a development of regional impact, which is basically a very big traffic study with all of the different stakeholders, including GDOT, ATL, DOT, Atlanta Regional Commission. And I think that discussion is still ongoing. If you can see here, it's something that people are very interested in or have been in the various discussions we've been having from a vehicular access standpoint. And I'm going to start from the left on Ponce. There will be a curb cut here at the bottom. There is a second curb cut which exists today, which is the shared drive on Ponce Place. Those are the two vehicular access points to this project. The larger tract, the East Tract, has 4 different curb cuts. 2 of them are on Ponce to Leon Avenue. One of them aligns with the Somerset Terrace pedestrian hawk signal. And then there are 2 curb cuts along the rear at Maiden Lane. There is no vehicular curb cut on Ponce de Leon Place for the Eastern Tract. And that's just more curb cuts. I'm going to pause there. Mike, are there any other plans that you want to share? Anything you want to add?
No, I think this picks up a lot of the general plan. So I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has related to the development or how we got to this point or anything like that.
Yeah, and to summarize, the conditions include a variety of things, including height, density, building form, ventilation, scrubbers. I mean, there are some very detailed components and there are some less detailed components. One major aspect of this is Virginia Highlands has a master plan that included road improvements in it along Ponce de Leon Place. And this project, as conditions, incorporates those improvements, or the ones that are achievable, incorporates those as conditions. So there are several intersections along Ponce de Leon Place where there will be improvements made And actually I want to say St. Charles as well, but bike lanes, bulb outs, crosswalks, things of that nature.
Ryan Sanders, do you have a question? Okay, Ryan. I think before we go to questions, I'm going to ask Virginia Highland if you want to give us your recommendation of the conclusions that were reached by the planning committee and a recommendation.
Thanks, Debbie. It's Jack for the Planning Committee. Also with me, though, are Amy Harward and Mark Campos from the Planning Committee, and VHC President Leah Matthews is also on, and they can all chime in as they are moved. They're also listed at the beginning of the pieces over there, and I'm just going to hit a few highlights. First of all, the project was legal. The property owners, the existing previous property owners, were not resistant. In fact, they were eager, it appears, to cooperate. It's the existing conditions down there have produced a number of ongoing conflicts as residential pressures and ancient commercial interests have collided down at the corner. This should resolve many, we hope all of them. Maiden Lane's going to really improve. The developer is as stable and sound as financially as any in the city, and we believe that they will be able to do everything that they have presented. There are no 100 perfect guarantees of that, but they're as good a bet as any, or better than most. They approached us very scientifically and carefully, and we appreciated that. Thank you to Jennifer and Mike and Darcy for that. And there turned out to be a lot of really important advantages to having one developer do it. That wasn't the way anybody had planned it. It wasn't the way anybody would have guessed, but it's the way it worked out. And they enabled a scale of improvements that Jessica alluded to right through that are really significant, particularly as Ponce Place will become a major walking route toward the new Virginia Holland Elementary this coming year. But they include some long desired pedestrian and cycling improvements, and some future traffic studies. So we'll put the two caveats on that. All of this is subject to ADOT approval and future Virginia Highlanders, which may or may not include some of the people that are involved now are going to have to continue to negotiate and fight for those. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance, so on we go. And certainly the construction impacts are going to be enormous. We know it. It'll be difficult, and it's going to take a lot of goodwill and constant effort on those parts. But we've also begun, Portman is also paying for traffic counts and traffic studies and some recommendations on Barnett for the changes we are certain will come there, and to Ponce and to St. Charles. And that'll give us traffic counts on St. Charles and some ideas of what's going. Those will also be traffic routes for walking to school. So our approval was unanimously, it was unanimous in favor of approval, as was the board's. And if you have questions about that, Mark, one of the two architects that worked so hard on it, is here. And again, Amy and Leah. So my motion is that the NPU recommend approval of the Virginia Highland Board's approval this past week. That's my motion.
Ramsden, second.
Okay. So there is a motion that's been properly seconded to recommend approval of, we're actually going to have to do these in two different votes. So we'll start with Z 2293.
Hey, Debbie.
Yeah.
Miss Anita there had her hand up. And,
Yeah, I see that. I see that. I wanted to get the motion on the floor, and then I will.
I just didn't want her to miss out on a chance to ask a question.
Everyone will have an opportunity to speak.
Okay.
Okay. Annette, your hand was raised first. Go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, I have a very practical question. I'm thrilled with this development, but one of the pictures she put up, she showed kind of not a fancy one. It's one showing the street and the curb cuts and all that. And she was talking about with the left property, there being a curb cut on the left side, right? Exactly right there. That is a hugely congested area right in there all the time because of everybody pulling into the Home Depot. I can see people making a right turn out of there, but if you have left turns right there with that stoplight being just right down there for the entrance to the Kroger, it's going to be just a big mess.
So Ned, you picked up on a very important issue that came up during the DRI process. So Georgia DOT is very protective of the curb cuts that you place on their roads, and so all the curb cuts on their roads are scrutinized extensively. This one in particular, almost all of these are right in and right out only, except for this one. And so this one has one additional movement that if you are on Ponce, you can turn left into the property. And so I know that's not ideal, and you correctly point out that it is a difficult movement. But there were a couple things that we discussed with GDOT that mitigate some of the stuff that you're pointing out. So one is that the turn lane exists today for the left-hand turn at the light. So they refer to this as making a turn in the shadow of the light. So this is a left-hand turn that is occurring before you get to the left-hand turn at the light. So what it means is that when that light turns, it gives you the left-hand arrow that the people in this lane can make that left-hand turn without oncoming traffic that's moving towards the city on Ponce de Leon Avenue.
Okay.
We studied specifically your point about will it back up from this turn into the turn that is either going into
Home Depot.
It's not Midtown Promenade. It's the Home Depot. I can't remember its exact name, but the Home Depot shopping center. So GDOT asked us to study how many cars are expected to be stacking at that location, and will they stack into the other turn that is back there at the Home Depot. And so they feel, and the traffic engineers feel, there is enough what they refer to as storage space for the cars to line up there and be able to make that left-hand turn. Now, it still is the lesser of two evils, as opposed to like a positive selection. The alternative to this, which is we place these one driveway on Ponce Place had to stay in that same location. There was no option to move it. So what we did is we placed this one as far away from the intersection as physically possible. So without the left-hand turn, the only alternative for people to access that property that are moving towards the east on Ponce Avenue is to make the left on Ponce Place and then make another left almost immediately into the site. And so, like, for instance, today, the people coming south on Ponce Place, that was backed up really bad today. We are adding a second turn lane on Ponce Place for people to turn left. So imagine somebody turning up Ponce Place and then having to turn in. They'll stop right there and back up the whole light.
Right.
So everybody recognized that was worse than making this left-hand turn into the property under the shadow of the light. And so normally GDOT does not grant like reprieve from their right in, right out rule. So in this one case, there felt like there was justification for it.
Well, I guess if the left turn arrow lasts long enough, then you'll be able to clear it in a safe way and allow people to turn into your property. If the arrow is short, it's gonna blow up.
So the good news about that is that Kimley Horn, our traffic engineer, is the on-contract traffic engineer for GDOT for what they refer to as the SIGOPS program. So that's the Signal Operations Program for the entire Ponce Avenue. So they consistently monitor the signals on Ponce. That isn't true about every GDOT road. So Ponce is different in this regard. They consistently monitor it, and Kimley Horn are the same people we hired to do this study for us, is the company that monitors it for them.
Okay. Well,
Annette, do you also have a concern about making a left turn out of that, off the property?
yeah, but I think he said you couldn't do that.
Yeah, that's not a movement you can make.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah.
You get killed.
By the way, the Greta conversation that y'all just did in about 6 minutes lasted about an hour and a half during their summary of it, with everybody weighing in fervently on this point.
Well, he very succinctly answered the question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Stephen Ramsden.
Hey, thanks again. I live directly next to I am in the closest home to this development. And I represent the 10 neighbors that live here with us. And we are 100% in favor of this project and have never seen a more professional outfit than Mike and his crew. And they have considered every single thing we've asked them to do and come up with a very, very reasonable and workable solution. The improvement to this corner is going to be significant, and I strongly encourage neighbors to support this. And I think there's still a motion active, and thank you. We 100% approve this as the closest neighbors to the development.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Joanne? Joanne Pope? Don't forget to unmute your phone.
Yes, I think that was answered actually, but is whenever you're talking about the GDOT and all that, is that MARTA included? Is that part of that? The buses and the trains and all of that included in the conversation?
Yes, they are part of the development of regional impact. So MARTA has a seat at the table.
Okay, good. Okay, and one other thing, is there any affordable housing in that neighborhood or in that in?
Absolutely. So the property's in the Beltline Overlay District, which requires a minimum of either 10% of the units to be affordable at 60% of area median income, or 15% of the units at 80% of area median income.
Thank you very much.
Natalie Ramsden?
Hi, thank you. I think most of this is a great plan, but my biggest concern, I'm Stephen's wife, we live directly behind this. And it looks great. Honestly, anything that would clear out Friends Bar, it could be a bunch of jackals, I'd probably vote for it. But I just want to be clear. Are we sure the current tenants at that property across us on Maiden Lane will not have any presence in this building? And will there be security? Because the one point of contention I have with this recommendation is it said there is just some noise, right? And that we haven't logged many formal infractions. And I know for a fact, all of our neighbors have been calling. We've called multiple numbers. We have people defecating in our yards. We have gunshots. People have been shot. There are fights all the time. We are threatened from the alley when we ask people to be quiet. The bar owner is not cooperative. That's a joke. People have been intentionally run over. It's on the news. That's quite an infraction. People have been stabbed. So I love the entire concept of this, but I just want to know there will be security that's a 180 from what we currently have, and we will not be stuck with the same tenants somehow worming their way into this because they've been a nightmare.
So thanks for your question, Mr. Anderson. So let me address the security thing first, because I think that's probably the easier one to address. So all around this property, there'll be brand new street lights. There will be cameras that cover the edges of the property that are monitored by the security guards in the office building, that are monitored by the staff in the apartment building, and then that are additionally monitored by our own property management people back at the Portman office. So there's like a multiple layer of covering the sidewalks and around the building to make sure that the property is safe on all its edges. We will also register those cameras into the and the name of the program is slipping my mind right this second.
The VIC program.
The VIC program. Thank you, Jessica. I couldn't remember the specific name for it. So we will work with the City of Atlanta PD for camera access if there happens to be incidents or car break-ins or anything like that. Now, I will tell you that I've met most of the bar and restaurant tenants on the property. Mr. Kearns, who runs the local, is retiring. He is
The local's okay. It's really Friends Bar. I mean, I just honestly, if Friends Bar is going to stay there, it does us no good to put up with all of this out. A lot of construction will disrupt the neighborhood. There'll be tons more traffic. There are a lot of compromises to us and our neighbors directly behind this. We're willing to do it if we can get rid of that horrible bar. That's
Right.
honestly what this vote comes down to. Will
So
they be there after this is done?
they will not. They asked, and I went over there and I met with Buddy and his manager. They asked if they could find a way to come back into the property, and they wanted to stay open until 4 a.m. And I mean, you know what they want to do.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so
Well, they wake
kindly
us up every
explained-
night at 4 a.m.
Natalie, I think you made
we kindly explained to them that that's not the type of establishment we want at the development, that it's a resident, it is largely a residential property, and we don't have any interest in that. He asked if we would ask around some of the brokers and the different parts of people for different areas in the town and see if there's anywhere where we had a lead he might be able to move to. I told him I would do that for the people that I knew, that dealt in retail spaces that are kind of like that he's in today. I have done that. None of them have come up with any specific ideas on where he might be able to move to. So I know that that's unfortunate for Buddy. And he wants to continue to run his business for another 10 years. But it won't be here.
That's fantastic. That's the best news we could hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments regarding this project? I don't see any other hands raised. There are a lot of conditions associated with this project. Like about 4 of them. And there are specific conditions for each of the 2 components, pieces of them. Is there anyone that has not read the conditions that would like for me to read them into the record? They will be included in the minutes.
Madam Chair, I'd ask unanimous consent if there is no such request that they be considered as read as if read in.
Are there any?
Ramsden, second.
Okay, second. Are there any objections to not reading the conditions for this project? Does anyone have any concerns or would like to hear them? Okay, then the motion carries without objection. Are there any other comments? If not, we will start the voting process. A motion was made and seconded to recommend approval of the project. We do need to split this into 2 components, Z2293 with conditions. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the motion? If not, if you're in favor to recommend approval of Z2293 with conditions, please raise your hand. All right, I see 22 ayes. I'm going to lower the votes. If you're opposed to recommending approval of Z2293 with conditions, please raise your hand. I see one X and I'm not sure what. I'm not
I
sure.
can't figure out what I've done. Sorry.
Okay, are you opposed?
I'm not opposed to it.
Okay. Anyone else? I have no idea. I have no idea what that is.
It's a reaction. He just needs to go on reactions and click on the X and it will go away.
Okay, you know, those used to go away after 10 seconds. If we could start using them again, that would be great. Okay, I'm going to close the vote by a vote of 22 ayes and 0 nays. The motion to recommend approval of Z2293 with conditions carries. Is there another motion for Z2294?
I move passage, Madam Chair, as presented with conditions.
Ramsden second.
Okay. Okay, once again, there are conditions associated with this application. Are there any objections to waiving the reading of the conditions? I hear no objections. Are there any questions regarding the motion? This is for the east parcel. Okay, are you ready to vote? If so, if you're in favor of recommending approval of Z2294 with conditions, please raise your hand. Someone's got a thumbs up. Do you want a thumbs up or do you?
That's a hand up.
Okay. Okay. Everyone voted that wants to vote. That's 23 ayes. Let me lower the votes. If you're opposed, please raise your hand. Opposed to the motion to recommend approval of Z2294 with conditions. Has everyone voted that wants to vote? If not, I see no nays. By a vote of 23 ayes and 0 nays, the motion carries. There's just one piece of information that I need for my report back to the city, and that is the date of the site plan.
We have, as far as the one referenced in the conditions.
Yep.
It is, let me email it to you. I'll
Okay.
email the site plans. I submitted them today to the city. So they don't have a date stamp back yet, but I can get you the date.
Okay. Okay, I won't send this in for a couple days, so I think we'll be.
Yep. I can send it to you right now.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Debbie, can I just say, I really appreciate everybody's cooperation and support in the project. It really was like, and it still is a fun interaction with the neighbors in Virginia Highland. And I know construction is going to be tough, but I think it's going to be great at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Mike, we appreciate the time and effort that you put in with the community to design your project.
It was my pleasure.
Really
It was fun.
so thank you. Annette, I see your hand raised.
Just a real quick question. What is the timeline for all this as to when you realistically think you're going to start construction?
Annette, we're gonna close on the properties right after the official rezoning, the mayor's action. And then we typically do not like to sit on properties for very long until we put them in production. Now, the whole situation with the bank, SVB going under and the interest rates right now may delay that by a couple of months or maybe even half a year, but it's our intention to get it going as fast as possible. We do not like to sit and hold on to land at all. So I don't have a definitive date for you, but just know it will be burning our hole in our pocket to move this thing forward as fast as we can.
Okay. Thank you. All righty. We've got some reports next on our agenda. Oh, I think I skipped one more. Okay. Actually, this is good timing. Doug, do you have a planner's report?
I do indeed, Debbie. I appreciate the opportunity to provide a few announcements from the Department of City Planning. Once again, my name is Doug Young. I'm the NPU-F planner assigned by our department. And I have two quick announcements. Let me bring up my notes here. These are the announcements for March. I don't know if you're familiar with the Aglanta program. It's the City of Atlanta's Urban Agriculture and Food Systems Resource Hub. They've created an interactive webpage and mobile app to help find fresh food at farmers markets, farm stands, and neighborhood markets across Metro Atlanta. And this app features fresh food access points and a seasonal produce calendar and more. I will put links to that in the chat. And then just a reminder that we have some upcoming NPU University courses. There's a couple that have already passed. There was one on March 1st that was an intro to parliamentary procedures, and one on March 9th, which was about avoiding housing scams and reducing property taxes. But the next one, which is still to come, is on Thursday, March 30th, which is building permits for beginners. And you can register and find out more about all the courses at the NPU University link that will be in the chat. And those are my quick announcements.
And as part of your report, are the Community Design Awards, which is an annual program.
Yep. I believe that was an announcement on the printed agenda itself.
Right.
I believe, my understanding, because I'm not running that as closely as I was before, I believe that we'll be coming back in April with that agenda, the voting agenda item for that.
I thought we were supposed to vote on it this month. Can we vote on it in April? That'd be fine.
Let me see here what I can figure out.
Daniel put it on our agendas under voting matters.
Then let's go ahead if there are projects to consider to vote on that.
Okay, I understand from the team that NPU did not have any nominations submitted, but that we are able, as an NPU, to select tonight a building, public space, event, art, or organization that makes our community a better place to live as our Community Design Award winner. The winner will be recognized May 16th at the Office of Design Awards event. Some of the previous awardees for NPU-F, last year we honored the Virginia Highland District Association. In 2021, the Armand Park in Lyndridge Martin Manor. In 2018, we honored the North Highland Mile race that was co-sponsored by MLPA in Virginia Highland. And in 2017, a planter wall mosaics by Stephanie Coffin in Virginia Highland. So those are just examples of things that this NPU has honored. Does anyone have any nominations for an award this year? We can nominate something or we can just take a pass. Marla?
I would nominate the Piedmont Heights Alliance for their work supporting all the businesses on Cheshire Bridge during the bridge outage, for their beautifying projects and networking opportunities that they provide for each other and with city officials.
Okay. Does anyone else have a nomination? Okay, I don't see any other nominations. So let's take a vote. The nomination is for the Piedmont Heights Alliance. Your vote can be to vote, approve that nomination or not to approve it, which I guess is a typical motion, to approve or not to approve. So for all those in favor of approving the Piedmont Heights Alliance, please raise your hand. Anyone else? Okay, I see 13 votes. Is there anyone that would not support this nomination? Okay, I don't see any nays. So the vote by a vote of 13 ayes and 0 nays, the Piedmont Heights Alliance will be our nominee for the Community Design Award for 2023. And Marla, I caught some of the reasons for your recommendation. If you could just send me a quick email.
Yes, no problem.
Everything.
Sure.
I can forward that on to planning. And I'll find out what other information that we need, like who will be the recipient and should be attending the event. Doug, is there anything else I need?
No, typically the short description you mentioned, and then just the attendee, mostly so we can get their name and ask any pronunciation issues, things like that.
Right, okay, great, thank you. Thank you, that was our last, well, I'm gonna say our last voting item, but it really wasn't. Okay, neighborhood and committee reports. Lenders Martin Manor.
Yes, we will be holding our Martini Madness on April 1st in the afternoon to try and get people to sign up to vote. For membership, Martini Madness.
Oh, okay.
And it's April Fool's Day, but it's for real.
Okay, thank you. Piedmont Heights. All right, I don't hear a report. Morningside Lenox Park.
We have our first spring concert in the park on March 24th, Friday, March 24th from 6 to 8 at Sydney Marcus. So live music, food truck, and some treats for the kids.
Okay. Virginia Highland.
Hi, yes. So we also have a concert in the park coming up on Saturday, March 25th. And that is 7 to 9:30 in John Howe Park. And then after that, we have an egg hunt the weekend of Easter. So that is Saturday, April the 8th at 1 p.m. in North Highland Park, which is a free community event. And then on Friday, April 28th, we have our 50th anniversary gala at Murphy's. So they are sponsoring it. So we're very excited about that. And then we're also kicking off Summerfest planning. So there's a lot going on, but that's it for now.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Anything in Edmond Park or the Emory Druid Hills area? Parks, trees, and environment? Rich or Holly?
Yes. I've been told to announce that the South Fork Conservancy will be holding its 2023 Creek Rising on Thursday, September 14th in Zona Light Park over in DeKalb County. And they will have their 3rd annual quilt show, which my wife is involved in. And I've put the information about registering to donate a quilt in the chat. So it's HTTPS, blah, blah, blah. So if anybody wants to donate a quilt, go to see that information. So it's September 14th, and I'll be back to you about this event later in the year.
Great, thank you. And Holly?
I do have something. Thank you, Debbie. Friends of Herbert Taylor Daniel Johnson would like to present their project for the infrastructure bond funds that were tagged for Herbert Taylor Park. And Annie Christopher is here from Friends of Herbert Taylor Daniel Johnson to go into specifics, but I just want to say that they've done a lot of work on this. MLPA voted to approve this plan. Alex Wan is supporting this plan. And even Mark Taylor and the Taylor family, the family that donated the land, was consulted and is involved in the planning of this. And the whole plan evolves around access and more access and accessibility for Herbert Taylor Park. So Annie, would you mind taking over, and Debbie, she may need to share her screen.
Yeah, she can go ahead and do that.
Sorry, I was muted. At the onset, I'm going to try to be so brief because it's so very late, and I'm a little bit of a Luddite, so I don't know how to screen share, and I'm hoping that maybe Holly, you could, or Debbie, you could, or Micah, you could.
I have a document up to screen share it.
Oh, you don't have it? Okay, I'm sorry. I know this was rather a last minute kind of thing. All right, while you, Holly and Micah, while you see if you can do that, I'll just describe the project if that works for everybody.
Okay.
Okay, so this was developed by the Friends of the Park in conjunction with the Taylor family. Thank you, Micah. It's, as Holly said, it's infrastructure bond money that, and it's been approved by MLPA and Alex Wan, and it's supposed to go to Park Design Review next week. And it's basically came out of feedback we were getting about access within the park and our deep desire to connect all the different parts of the park. And our group has we've had all open meetings. We have more than 300 people on our mailing list. We have work days every month, and everything was posted in our kiosk, and we have no information on any objections to date to our plans. This plan was rendered for us by Patrick Hand, who did Noble Park, who did some work in Herbert Taylor already. He did Zonalite, he did Sunken Garden. You know, he's done a lot of great projects. So this very first one is 2 different entrances, one on Johnson Road and one on Meadowdale Avenue. And both of them were very steep to walk off the road onto. So there's now a kind of a safe entrance, and it's stabilizing the trail. And it's really all about getting into the park. There is one other entrance, the entrance on Pasadena where the kiosk is, but these, we want everybody in the neighborhood to be able to get into this park from different directions. So that's the first piece, the entrance enhancement. The second thing, Micah, could you go to page 2? There's a stone walkway across the gully. There's, gosh, it's not quite big enough to see, but we've put in some steps and a stone walkway. So that's basically, if you look to the left of 6, you'll see the trail, and then you'll see the steps, and then a stone walkway, and then another set of steps that's already there. And then you see the existing trail. Neighbors wanted us to put riffraff down there, so that's going in. We really, to help stabilize that side of Rock Creek, to safely navigate the trail around the private property at 1367 Pasadena, which we're very cognizant of. So this new bridge across Rock Creek right there is to make it much more easy for people to get across. People were going across a weir, which is really never meant to be a pedestrian access point, and which gets covered over in the rain. So just the left of that concrete weir, you see the proposed bridge. Next page, Micah. You can sort of see, this one isn't so relevant. I don't think you need to see this one. There are some small steps at the Beach Valley entrance. So that's it. I'm standing in for the 2 co-chairs who can't be here. So Holly and Mike are pretty familiar with this. If you have any questions, you can ask all 3 of us, and we'll try our best.
And the Parks Department needs the NPU's approval in order to go forward. Is that correct?
Well, we would like to have that piece in place. I'm not sure it's absolutely required. It is required, Holly? Okay.
Okay, does anyone have any questions regarding the plans at Herbert Taylor and Daniel Johnson Park? Is there a motion?
I move that NPU-F approve and support this project.
I'll second.
Rich and Kay. Motion's been made and seconded to approve and support the project plans at of Friends of Herbert Taylor and Daniel Johnson Park. Are there any questions regarding the motion or any discussion? All righty, I think they'll probably want to see a hand count. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Anybody left? All righty. Has everyone voted that cares to vote? Nope, number's still going up. Oh. Can everybody find the raise your hand? The number keeps going up, so I'm afraid to call it. Okay, I see 14 ayes. Is there anyone opposed to supporting the plan for the park? Okay, I don't see any objections. By a vote of 14 ayes and 0 nays, the motion carries unanimously. Holly, is there something that I need to sign or a letter to write or something?
I assume that Marty can send that to you.
Okay,
Normally it's a form letter, I believe.
yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I asked. Okay. All right, anything else from Parks, Trees and Environment? Then we'll move on to the Education Committee.
Hi, Debbie. I think the biggest announcement that's been on most people's mind is that the Midtown proposals came out that are addressing the overcrowding. And so as it stands now, there is no option on the table that affects any neighborhood in NPU-F. So that's positive as of at least right now. The first option would be basically to do nothing and to come up with innovative strategies. So they have not really deemed what these innovative strategies are, but some things that have been floated are half days. So some kids would go to school in the morning, others in the afternoon, doing residency verifications to kind of shave off some numbers. Not sure that's going to move the needle enough, but they're trying to come up with some innovative ways to come up with solutions to not take people out of the cluster currently. The second option is rezoning Centennial to Washington High School. So again, that affects more West Midtown, not anyone in NPU-F. The formal recommendation should come out in April with the first read in May and then voting after that. And then they will not have to vote if they go with option one. So the board will not be involved in that. And then the next board meeting is the first Monday in April. And then beyond that, APS is also changing their curriculum a little bit. So where they're trying to make it more uniform across the district versus schools having autonomy over choosing their curriculum. There's been a lot of talk about this at the middle school level. And so if anyone is particularly interested in hearing how this is playing out, you can tune in to a coffee talk with Principal Hollis on March 22nd at 10 a.m. And that is it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Communications, is there anything to report?
Looks like Andrew had to give up on us and go get some sleep, but just Andrew and I are working on making that transition to get him in charge of all of our communication assets, and he should be up and running with that soon.
Great. In public safety, anything to report, Kay?
Yeah, in the interest of time, if anybody has any questions, you know how to contact me.
Okay, thank you. I have a very brief APAB report. The last meeting was my last straw. We spent about an hour discussing a motion on whether or not to address the president's behavior. It was a waste of time. So I'm going to be taking a several months off from APAB until they can get their act together. From the chair's report, I just have two things that I wanted to mention. One was that our projects for the 2023 Community Impact Grant were submitted by the deadline. I requested more than the max grant as I had promised, and that's to supplement the Lindridge Martin Manor project. We should hear by the end of the March on whether or not our projects had been accepted. We did meet the requirement to attend 3 specific NPU courses, so we're eligible for the $1,500 bonus. And checks for the projects should be available end of April, but probably early May-ish. So I'm going to thank all the project managers who got their materials to me with more than enough time to prepare the submission. We were a couple days early, and that was a good thing. There is a new requirement for the projects this year, and that is for the project leaders to report on the status of their projects at NPU meetings. And so we will start doing that in May after the checks are received and the projects get underway. And the other thing I wanted to report was some of you may be following the Clifton Corridor bus MARTA project. If you hadn't heard, MARTA is now proposing a BRT rather than the LRT option. Most of it will run along the rail right of way to the Avondale stations, which means it should not be cutting across private property. And they're also proposing 2 shuttles, one to the VA and the other to the Decatur's station. Their final proposal should be available in a couple months, so stay tuned. And that's it for me. And I think that's the end of our agenda. Is there any other business to come before the NPU tonight? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes. Adjourn.
Second.
Second. I think Holly beat me to second.
Great job, Debbie. Holding it together for us.
You really